My daughter-in-law called me a senile fool in front of my grandkids, so I sold the ranch she thought was hers, donated half to charity, and never looked back. If you are watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and tell me in the comments where you are listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has traveled. My name is Hiram Douglas. I am 68 years old. My hands are rough like old leather, and my skin is the color of the deep, fertile soil of Texas. I have spent every day of my life on Freedom Hill. This 500-acre ranch is not just land, it is my blood. It is the sweat of my grandfather who bought the first 10 acres when folks said a black man could not own anything but the shirt on his back. It is the memory of my wife Etta, who passed 5 years ago and left a silence in this big house that I have never been able to fill. For 40 years, I woke up before the sun to feed cattle and fix fences. I built this place from a struggling farm into a legacy worth $5 million. I did it for my son Darnell. I wanted him to have the ease I never had. I sent him to the best schools. I bought him the cars he wanted. I thought I was giving him a head start, but I now realize I was only crippling him. I raised a man who knows the price of everything but the value of nothing. And he married Kylie. Kylie is a woman who looks at a sunset and only sees real estate potential. She is 30 years old with blonde hair that costs more to maintain than my tractor and a smile that she wears like a mask. She tolerates me, or at least she used to. To her, I am just the old black man who comes with the property, a piece of old furniture that is too heavy to move but too ugly to look at. It was the 4th of July. The sun was high and hot over Texas, but the air at Freedom Hill was sweet with the smell of hickory smoke and blooming magnolias. Kylie had insisted on hosting the party. She called it a networking event. I called it an invasion. She had transformed my backyard. Gone were the simple picnic tables where Etta and I used to feed the neighbors. Instead, there were white linen tablecloths, imported crystal glasses, and waiters in white gloves passing around tiny appetizers that looked like bird food. The guests were her friends and Darnell's business associates. They were people who had never got dirt under their fingernails. They drove shiny cars that looked out of place on my gravel driveway. I stayed out of the way for most of the morning. I was in my element by the big iron smoker behind the carriage house. I had been tending to the ribs since 4 in the morning. It was Etta's secret recipe, a dry rub of spices we mixed ourselves in a slow smoke over pecan wood. The meat was so tender it was falling off the bone. The sauce was thick and dark and smelled like heaven. This was my contribution, the only thing I insisted on bringing to the party. Around 2 in the afternoon, I arranged the ribs on a large silver platter. It was heavy. My arms ached a little. I am not as young as I used to be, but I am strong. I felt a surge of pride. This was real food. This was soul food. This was the heart of Freedom Hill. I walked toward the main patio where the guests were mingling. I was wearing my lucky apron, the one stained with grease and memories. I had a smile on my face. I wanted to share this. I wanted to see people enjoy something real. Kylie was standing near the center of the patio holding a glass of champagne. She was wearing a white designer dress that probably cost $2,000. She was laughing at something a tall man in a linen suit was saying. I approached the table. "Excuse me, folks," I said, my voice deep and rasping. "I got the main course right here. Best ribs in the county." The conversation stopped. The guests turned to look at me. They did not look at the food with hunger. They looked at me with amusement, like I was the hired help, providing a quaint, rustic entertainment. Kylie turned around. Her smile vanished instantly. Her eyes narrowed into 2 cold slits. She looked at the platter of ribs dripping with dark sauce. Then she looked at her pristine white tablecloths. Then she looked at my old apron. "Hiram," she hissed, dropping the pretense of calling me Dad. "What are you doing? I told the caterers to handle the food. These aren't catered." "Kylie," I said, keeping my voice steady, "these are Etta's ribs. It is the 4th of July. You cannot have a party without ribs." I stepped forward to place the platter on the main table. "No!" she shrieked. It happened so fast. She lunged forward, not to help me, but to stop me. She threw her hands out as if the ribs were toxic waste. Her manicured hand hit the edge of the silver platter. I tried to hold on. I tried to balance it, but the force of her shove was unexpected. The platter tipped. Time seemed to slow down. I watched as 12 hours of love and labor slid off the metal. The ribs, dark and glistening, tumbled through the air. They did not hit the table. They hit the stone pavers of the patio with a wet, heavy slap. The sauce splattered. It flew across the polished stones. It landed on the shoes of the guests. And a large, dark spray of barbecue sauce landed right across the front of Kylie's white designer dress. The silence that followed was absolute. The music seemed to stop. The birds seemed to stop singing. Kylie looked down at her dress. Her face turned a color I had never seen before, a mix of purple and red. She began to shake. "You clumsy idiot," she screamed. Her voice echoed off the walls of the ranch house my father built. "Look what you did. This dress is ruined. You ruined everything." I stood there. My hands were empty. The platter was on the ground. I looked at the wasted food. I felt a pain in my chest that had nothing to do with my heart. "It was an accident, Kylie," I said quietly. "You pushed the tray." "Don't you dare blame me," she yelled, stepping closer. She was in a frenzy now. The humiliation of the stain on her dress had stripped away her mask. "I am sick of this. I am sick of you embarrassing us. Look at you. You look like a field hand. You smell like smoke and old meat," Kylie Darnell said from the edge of the crowd. I looked at my son, my boy, the boy I had carried on my shoulders, the boy I had taught to fish in the creek down the hill. He was holding a glass of red wine. He looked at his wife, who was screaming at his father. He looked at his wealthy friends who were watching the drama with wide eyes. "Darnell," I said, looking him in the eye, "are you going to let her talk to me like that?" Darnell looked at me. Then he looked at Kylie. I saw the calculation in his eyes. He saw the anger in his wife. He saw the judgment of his peers. He made his choice. He looked down at his wine glass and swirled the red liquid. "Dad," he mumbled, his voice low. "Kylie is stressed. You really should have let the caterers handle it. You know how clumsy you get lately." The betrayal hit me harder than any physical blow. He called me clumsy. He sided with the woman screaming at me. He threw his own father under the bus to save face in front of these strangers. Kylie saw his weakness and she pounced. She felt empowered. "See," she shouted, pointing a finger in my face. "Even your son knows it. You are useless, Hiram. You are just taking up space." She took a breath, and then she said the words that would seal her fate, the words that would cost her $5 million. "You senile old fool. You are losing your mind. Look at this mess. You are unfit to be here. This ranch is wasted on you. It belongs to Darnell. It belongs to us. And as soon as we get the legal work done, I am going to bulldoze that disgusting smokehouse and put in a swimming pool. Now get out of my sight. Go to your room like a good little boy before you break something else." The guests gasped. A few looked away embarrassed. But nobody said a word. Nobody defended me. I stood there for a long moment. The Texas sun beat down on my neck. I looked at Kylie. Her face was twisted with hate. I looked at Darnell. He was still looking at his wine, pretending he was anywhere else. I looked at the ribs on the ground. Etta's ribs. Slowly, with a dignity that made my old knees creak, I bent down. The crowd watched in silence. I reached out and picked up a single rib from the pile. It was coated in dust and gravel. The sauce was smeared. I stood up. I took a napkin from my pocket and wiped the dirt off the meat. I looked directly at Kylie. I did not yell. I did not rage. I did not cry. I took a bite of the rib. I chewed it slowly. I tasted the hickory and the spice and the grit of the earth. "This is good meat," I said, my voice calm and low. "It is a sin to waste it." I turned my back on them. I heard Kylie scoff behind me. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "He is totally gone. Senile old fool." I walked away from the party. I walked away from the laughter that was starting to bubble up again as the tension broke. I walked away from my son, who did not run after me. I walked through the back door of the house. The air conditioning hit my face, but it did not cool the fire in my belly. I walked past the living room where Darnell's golf clubs were leaning against the wall. I walked past the kitchen where the caterers were plating their tiny, tasteless food. I went down the hall to my study. This was the room where I handled the business of the ranch, the room where I paid the bills and tracked the cattle markets. I entered the room and closed the heavy oak door. I turned the lock. Click. The sound of the party was muffled now. I was alone with the smell of old books and leather. I walked to the portrait of Etta hanging over the fireplace. Her eyes seemed to follow me. She looked sad. "I am sorry, Etta," I whispered. "I tried. I really tried for the boy. But they broke it. They broke the last straw." I moved to the large painting of a longhorn bull on the north wall. I swung it aside. Behind it was a wall safe. My hands did not shake. I spun the dial. Right to 20, left to 10, right to 45. The heavy steel door swung open. Inside were stacks of papers, bonds, cash reserves. But I ignored those. I reached into the back and pulled out a thick blue envelope. I sat down at my desk and opened it. Inside was the grant deed to Freedom Hill, 500 acres of prime Texas land, free and clear, no mortgage, no liens. I ran my thumb over the legal description of the property. I looked at my name on the title, Hiram Douglas. Kylie thought this ranch belonged to Darnell. She thought it was already theirs, just waiting for me to die or be locked away. She thought I was a senile old fool who didn't know what he had. She was wrong. I took out my old flip phone. It was battered and scratched, but it worked. I dialed a number I had not called in 20 years, a number I had saved for a day I hoped would never come. It rang 3 times. Douglas, a woman's voice answered sharp and clear. "This is a surprise." "Ms. Patel," I said. "It is Hiram. Hiram. I assume this isn't a social call. You saved my father's life 20 years ago. I owe you. What do you need?" I looked at the deed in my hand. I looked at the closed door. I could hear the faint sound of music from the patio. They were celebrating. They were drinking my wine and standing on my land and planning my demise. "I need to sell Freedom Hill," I said. Silence on the other end. "Sell it?" the lawyer asked. "All of it. Every inch," I said, immediately. "Cash deal. And Ms. Patel, there is one condition. Name it. It has to be done in total secrecy. My son and his wife cannot know until the ink is dry. Consider it done," she said. "I have buyers who would kill for that land. We can close in 48 hours. "Good," I said. "And Ms. Patel?" "Yes, Hiram. Make sure the buyer is someone who respects the dirt. I don't want a golf course. I understand. I will see you at my office at dawn." I hung up the phone. I put the deed back in the envelope and tucked it into the inside pocket of my vest. I sat there in the silence of my study. My heart was beating slow and steady like a war drum. They called me a fool. They called me senile. They thought I was weak because I was kind. But they forgot one thing. I am a rancher. I have survived droughts and floods and wolves. I know how to spot a predator. And I know what to do when an animal goes bad. "You put it down." I stood up and unlocked the door. I was ready to play my part. If they wanted a senile old fool, that is exactly what I would give them, until the trap was snapped shut. That night, the silence in the house was heavier than a wet wool blanket. I sat in my leather chair in the dark, listening to the grandfather clock in the hall ticking away the seconds of my life, tick-tock, tick-tock. It was the same clock Etta and I bought for our first anniversary 40 years ago. Back then, time felt like a promise. Now it felt like a countdown. I could not sleep. The image of Etta's ribs lying in the dirt was burned into my eyelids. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Kylie's face twisted in disgust. I saw my son Darnell turning away from me, sipping his expensive wine, while his wife treated me like a stray dog. But it was not the anger that kept me awake. It was the instinct. You do not survive 68 years as a black rancher in Texas without developing a sixth sense for danger. The air in the house felt wrong. It felt charged with static, like the moments before a tornado touches down. Around 2 in the morning, I heard it. Voices. They were coming from the living room down the hall. They were low and urgent. I stood up from my chair. My knees popped, but I ignored the pain. I moved to the door of my study and opened it just a crack. I did not step out. I did not turn on a light. I stood in the shadows just as I had done when I hunted coyotes that came for the calves in the spring. I became part of the darkness. I crept down the hallway. The floorboards of this house know my step. I laid them myself. I know exactly where to place my foot so the wood does not groan. I moved silent as a ghost toward the sliver of light spilling from the living room. I expected them to be arguing about the barbecue. I expected Kylie to be complaining about her dress or about how I embarrassed her in front of her high society friends. I was wrong. It was much worse than that. "You do not understand, Darnell," Kylie hissed. Her voice was sharp and cold like broken glass. "We are out of time. The investors are calling me every day. They are threatening to freeze everything." I pressed my ear closer to the wall. "Investors, freeze everything. Babe, please," Darnell pleaded. His voice sounded thin and watery. I just need a little more time. The market is going to bounce back. It has to. I put everything into that new coin. It is just a dip. A dip! Kylie laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was a cruel sound. You lost $2 million, Darnell. $2 million. That was not our money. That was leverage. That was money we borrowed against assets we do not even own yet. My heart hammered against my ribs. $2 million. My son had gambled away a fortune he did not have on invisible money. Magic beans. We are dead if we do not pay them back. Kylie continued. They are not banks, Darnell. They are not people who send polite letters. They are people who break legs, and they know where we live. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. My son was not just a failure. He was in danger. Real physical danger. For a second, the father in me wanted to burst into the room and ask how I could help. I wanted to save him. But then Kylie spoke again, and that impulse died a violent death. We need to sell the ranch, she said. Now. Immediately. We can't. Darnell whined. Dad won't sell. You know he won't. This land has been in his family for 3 generations. He talks about it like it is a holy relic. He is the only obstacle, Kylie said, and after today, he is an obstacle we can remove. What do you mean? Darnell asked. Did you see him today? Kylie said. Her voice dropped lower, conspiring. Did you see how he looked? Confused, aggressive, dropping food everywhere, muttering to himself. He ruined my party, Darnell, but he gave us a gift. He proved he is losing his mind. I clenched my fists in the dark. I was not losing my mind. She had pushed me. She had staged the whole thing. We can use this, she said. I already spoke to Dr. Finch. Who is Dr. Finch? Darnell asked. He is a specialist, Kylie said. A very expensive, very discreet specialist. He runs a facility called Serenity Gardens. It is a memory care unit. It is secure, Darnell. Once a patient goes in, they do not come out unless a guardian signs them out. A nursing home, Darnell whispered. You want to put Dad in a nursing home. Not a nursing home, Kylie corrected. A secure facility for the mentally incompetent. If we get him declared incompetent, we get power of attorney. We get control of his assets. We get the ranch. I stopped breathing. The air in the hallway seemed to vanish. They were not just planning to sell my land, they were planning to lock me away. They were planning to erase me, to take my freedom and my dignity and bury me in a room with white walls while they sold off my grandfather's legacy to pay for their gambling debts. But he is not really sick, Darnell said. He is old. Yeah, but he runs the ranch fine. He balances the books. He is sharper than me sometimes. That does not matter, Kylie snapped. Dr. Finch owes me a favor. He will sign the evaluation. He will say whatever we need him to say. He will say Hiram is a danger to himself and others. The incident with the barbecue will be Exhibit A. We just need your signature on the consent form to start the evaluation process. There was a long silence. I waited. I prayed. I prayed to God and to Etta and to every ancestor who had bled for this soil. I prayed for my son to be a man. I prayed for him to say no, to say that he would not betray his own father, that he would face his debts like an adult and not sacrifice me to save his own skin. I listened to the silence, and I hoped. Then I heard the sound of paper sliding across the coffee table. If we do this, Darnell said, his voice shaking, will it cover the debt? The ranch is worth $5 million conservatively, Kylie said. We sell it to that developer who wants to build the golf course. We pay off the loan sharks. We have $3 million left over. We can start fresh, Darnell. No more debt, just us. And your dad will be taken care of. He will be safe. It is for his own good, really. He shouldn't be living out here alone anyway. For his own good. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. Just sign the paper, Darnell, she urged. Sign it and all our problems go away. I heard the click of a pen. That sound was louder than a gunshot in the quiet house. Click. I closed my eyes. I felt a tear leak out and run down my cheek into my beard. It was a hot tear, a tear of mourning. In that moment, my son died. The little boy I had fished with was gone. The young man I had taught to drive a tractor was gone. The person in that room was a stranger, a coward, a thief. Okay, Darnell whispered. I will do it. I heard the scratch of the pen on paper, the sound of my betrayal being written in ink. Good boy, Kylie said. Her voice was triumphant. Tomorrow morning I will take his truck keys. We will tell him he lost them. We will start making him doubt his memory, gaslighting him. It will be easy. He trusts us. He trusts us. I opened my eyes. The sadness was gone. It had burned away, leaving something hard and cold in its place. Iron, steel. They thought I trusted them. They thought I was a sheep waiting for the slaughter. They thought because I loved them, I was blind. I turned around. I did not storm into the room. I did not scream. I did not give them the satisfaction of seeing my pain. I walked back to my study. My steps were silent, but they felt heavy with purpose. I entered the room and locked the door again. I went to my desk. I sat down in the dark. I did not turn on the lamp. I did not need light to do what had to be done. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the old flip phone. My hands were steady. My heart was a cold engine beating a slow rhythm of war. Darnell was not a victim. He was not being manipulated against his will. He was an active participant. He had held the pen. He had signed his name. He had sold his father for a clean slate. He was no longer my son. He was a hostile party. He was a threat to Freedom Hill, and threats are neutralized. I opened the phone. The screen cast a blue glow on my weathered face. I scrolled through the contacts until I found the number I had saved earlier. Ms. Patel. It was 3 a.m. I did not care. I typed a text message. My thumbs were thick, but they moved with precision. I hit send. Ms. Patel, I need to see you. At dawn. Not at your office. Meet me at the diner on Main Street. Come alone. I watched the message send. Delivered. I set the phone down on the desk. I looked up at the darkness where Etta's portrait hung. I am sorry, Etta, I whispered again. I gave him a chance. I prayed for him, but he signed the paper. I leaned back in the chair. I would not sleep tonight. I would sit here and watch the sun come up over my land. My land. Tomorrow they would try to take my keys. Tomorrow they would try to tell me I was crazy. Tomorrow they would bring their fake doctor and their lies. Let them come. They thought they were trapping a senile old fool. They were about to find out they had locked themselves in a cage with a tiger. I waited for the dawn, and as the first gray light touched the window, I smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who has nothing left to lose and everything to protect. The game had changed, and they did not even know the rules. The sun rose over Freedom Hill like a bruised plum, spilling purple light across the pastures that I had tended for 40 years. I was dressed before the first rooster crowed. I put on my Sunday boots, the ones I kept polished for church and funerals. I buttoned my vest over my white shirt. I looked in the mirror, and I did not see a broken old man. I saw a soldier preparing for his final battle. I needed to get to town. I needed to see Ms. Patel before Darnell and Kylie woke up and started their day of lies. The plan was simple. I would take my old Ford pickup truck, the one with the dent in the bumper from when a bull charged it back in '95. I would drive into town, meet the lawyer, and sign the death warrant for my own legacy. I walked into the kitchen. The house was quiet. The smell of stale coffee and secrets hung in the air. I went to the key hook by the back door. It was a brass hook shaped like a horseshoe that Etta had nailed there 3 decades ago. My keys had hung there every night since then. The hook was empty. I stared at it. I blinked. I patted my pockets even though I knew they were empty. I looked on the floor. Then I heard the click of heels on the hardwood floor. "Good morning, Dad." I turned around. Kylie was standing in the doorway of the kitchen. She was wearing a silk robe that shimmered in the morning light. She held a mug of tea in her hands and she was smiling. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile a wolf gives a lamb before it tears its throat out. "Are you looking for something?" she asked. Her voice was syrupy sweet, the kind of voice you use when talking to a toddler who has just soiled himself. "My keys," I said. My voice was rough from lack of sleep. "I need to go into town. I have errands." "Oh, Dad," she sighed. She took a sip of her tea and shook her head sadly. "Do you not remember?" "Remember what?" "We talked about this last night," she said. "You gave them to Darnell. You said you were feeling dizzy. You said you did not trust yourself behind the wheel anymore. Do you really not remember that?" I looked at her. She was lying. She was lying with such ease and confidence that for a split second I actually questioned myself. That is how they do it. That is the poison. They twist your reality until you do not know which way is up. It is called gaslighting. I knew the word, but experiencing it was like stepping into quicksand. "I did not give Darnell my keys," I said. I drive that truck every day. Kylie stepped closer. She reached out and patted my arm. Her hand felt cold through my shirt. See, this is exactly what Dr. Finch was worried about, she said. The confusion. The memory gaps. It is getting worse, Dad. Yesterday you ruined the party. Today you are imagining things. It is dangerous for you to drive. What if you hurt someone? What if you hurt yourself? Darnell and I just want to keep you safe. We are keeping the keys for your own good. For my own good. There was that phrase again. The phrase they used to wrap their greed in a package of fake concern. I felt a surge of rage so hot it almost blinded me. I wanted to grab her wrist. I wanted to demand my property. I wanted to tell her that I had driven that truck through floods and blizzards and I could drive it better in my sleep than she could with her eyes open. But I stopped myself. I remembered the plan. I remembered the recording on Henry's phone. I remembered that to catch a predator, you have to play the prey. I let my shoulders slump. I let my mouth hang open slightly. I forced my hands to tremble. I did not realize I said. My voice wavered. I forgot. Did I really give them to him? Yes, Dad, she said. Her eyes gleamed with triumph. You did. You were very upset, but do not worry. You do not need to go anywhere. Just stay here. Relax. Watch some television. Darnell will handle the ranch. You just rest. She patted my cheek. It took every ounce of my willpower not to flinch. Okay, I said. I will just go sit on the porch then. Good idea, she said. She turned and walked away, the silk of her robe swishing behind her. She thought she had won. She thought she had locked the old man in his cage. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close. I did not go to the porch. I went out the back door. The truck sat in the driveway, silent and useless without the keys. I patted its hood. I am sorry, old girl, I whispered. Not today. I walked past the truck. I walked past the barn. I walked past the chicken coop where the hens were scratching in the dirt. I walked to the property line. Town was 5 miles away. 5 miles of Texas dirt road under a sun that was already starting to bake the earth. For a man of 30, it was a long walk. For a man of 68 with bad knees, it was a pilgrimage. I opened the gate and stepped onto the dusty shoulder of the county road. I started walking, 1 foot in front of the other. My boots crunched on the gravel. Dust coated my polished leather. Sweat began to trickle down my back. As I walked, I looked at the fences that ran along the road. 5 strands of barbed wire pulled tight as a guitar string. Cedar posts dug 3 feet deep every 10 yards. I stopped at a corner post. It was a massive piece of old timber, gray and weathered. I put my hand on it. I remembered the day I set this post. It was 40 years ago. Darnell was just a baby in his crib. I was a young man with more debt than sense. The bank had threatened to foreclose if I did not get the perimeter secured. I could not afford a crew. I could not afford an auger. I dug every single hole with a post hole digger and a steel bar. The ground here is not soft. It is full of limestone and clay. You have to fight the earth for every inch. I remembered the blisters on my hands. I remembered the way my back screamed at night. I remembered Etta bringing me jars of ice water and wiping my forehead with her handkerchief. She would say, "You are building a kingdom, Hiram. This is for our son." I looked at the fence now. It was straight and true. It had held for 40 years. It had kept the cattle in and the coyotes out. And now the boy I built it for wanted to sell it to pay for digital coins he lost on a computer screen. He had never dug a post hole in his life. He had never stretched wire until his hands bled. He did not know what this land cost. Not in money, but in life. I gripped the rough wood of the post until a splinter dug into my palm. The pain was sharp and real. It grounded me. They took my keys because they thought I was weak. They thought without a truck I was stranded. They forgot that my legs were built from walking these fields. They forgot that my will was forged in the heat of 1,000 summer days. I pushed off the post and kept walking. My breath came harder. My chest felt tight, but I did not stop. A pickup truck passed me going the other way. The driver slowed down, looking at the old black man in a vest walking on the side of the road. I did not look up. I did not ask for a ride. I had to do this on my own. I thought about Kylie's face when she took my keys, the arrogance, the absolute certainty that she was smarter than me. I thought about Darnell signing that paper in the dark, The anger fueled me. It gave strength to my legs. Mile 1 passed, then mile 2. My feet were burning, my knees were shouting. But my mind was clear. It was clearer than it had been in years. I was not just walking to town, I was walking away from them. I was walking away from the lie of my family. I was walking toward the truth, no matter how much it hurt. By the time the buildings of the town came into view, my shirt was soaked through. My boots were covered in white dust. I must have looked like a madman or a prophet coming out of the desert. I walked down Main Street. People stared. I ignored them. I saw the diner. The neon sign was buzzing. The smell of bacon and grease wafted out. I opened the door. The bell chimed. The diner was mostly empty. Just a few truckers and farmers having their morning coffee. In the back booth sat a woman. She was small, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp, intelligent eyes behind thick glasses. She was wearing a business suit that looked out of place in the diner. It was Ms. Patel. She looked up as I approached. Her eyes widened when she saw my condition. She saw the sweat, the dust, the exhaustion. "Hiram," she said, standing up. "My God. What happened? Did you have an accident?" I sat down heavily in the booth. The vinyl squeaked. I took a napkin and wiped my face. I took a long drink of the water that was waiting on the table. I looked at her. "They took my keys," I said. My voice was raspy. "They told me I lost them. They told me I was too old to drive. So I walked." "You walked 5 miles?" she asked. "I would have walked 50, I said. She looked at me for a long moment. She saw the fire in my eyes. She saw the iron in my spine. She nodded slowly. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a yellow legal pad and a gold pen. "Okay, Hiram," she said. "You said on the phone you wanted to sell." I reached into my vest pocket. The deed was damp with sweat, but it was safe. I pulled it out and laid it on the table. "I do not just want to sell," I said. I leaned forward. "I want to burn it down, not the land. The land is innocent. I want to burn down their future. I want to burn down their inheritance. I want to burn down every expectation they have of living off my sweat and my blood." Ms. Patel uncapped her pen. "Tell me what you want to do," she said. "I want to sell Freedom Hill," I said. "Today. I want the money in an offshore trust where they cannot touch a cent. And Ms. Patel, I want to do it in a way that hurts." She raised an eyebrow. "Hurts how?" "They think I am incompetent," I said. "They think I am a child they need to manage. So I want to play a game with them. I want them to believe they have won. I want them to think they have the ranch. I want them to celebrate." And then Ms. Patel asked, a small smile playing on her lips. And then I said, "I want to pull the rug out from under them so hard they never stand up again." I told her about the debts. I told her about the loan sharks. I told her about the nursing home. When I finished, Ms. Patel was not smiling anymore. Her face was hard. "That is monstrous," she whispered. "Yes," I said, "it is. And now I need a monster to fight them." "Are you that monster, Ms. Patel?" She looked at the deed. She looked at me. She picked up the pen. "For you, Hiram," she said, "I will be whatever you need. Let us get to work." We sat in that diner for 2 hours. We drank coffee and we plotted the destruction of my son's life. It should have felt terrible. It should have felt like a sin. But as I looked out the window at the dusty street, I felt something else. I felt free. I was not the victim anymore. I was the author of the story, and the ending I was writing was going to be a masterpiece. Ms. Patel drove us to her office in a sleek black sedan that smelled of leather and lemon polish. I sat in the passenger seat watching the familiar landscape of my town blur past the window. My hands rested on my knees. They were still shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the aftershocks of rage. I had walked 5 miles in the heat, but the cold air conditioning of the car felt like stepping into a meat locker. We arrived at a brick building on the edge of the town square. It was unassuming on the outside, but inside it was a fortress of mahogany and glass. Ms. Patel led me to a conference room in the back. She did not offer me coffee. She knew I did not want pleasantries. She knew I wanted blood. She placed a thick file on the table between us. The sound of the heavy paper hitting the wood echoed in the quiet room. It sounded like a judge's gavel coming down. "I need you to look at this, Hiram," she said, her voice low and serious. "I have been keeping an eye on Darnell for months, ever since he started missing payments on his own truck. I did not want to worry you until I was sure of what I asked. Sure that he was drowning," she said. She opened the file. Inside were spreadsheets, bank statements, and photocopies of emails. There were numbers in red ink, lots of numbers. I leaned forward and squinted at the bottom line. My breath caught in my throat. It felt like a mule had kicked me in the chest. $2 million. I looked at Ms. Patel. I looked back at the paper. I counted the zeros. 2 million, I whispered. How is that possible? He is a rancher's son. He sells cattle. He makes a decent living. How does a man lose $2 million? Cryptocurrency. Ms. Patel said the words tasting sour in her mouth. And online gambling. High-stakes poker on servers hosted in Russia and the Cayman Islands. He thought he was a financier, Hiram. He thought he could outsmart the algorithm. He leveraged everything he had. Then he leveraged everything he did not have. I felt sick. My son had taken the money I gave him for college, for his wedding, for his start in life, and he had thrown it into a digital fire. He had bet the sweat of my brow on invisible coins. But that is not the worst part, Ms. Patel said. She flipped a page. There was a document there that looked different. It was not a bank statement. It was a contract. It looked like a loan agreement, but the names at the top were not banks I recognized. They were LLCs with names like Obsidian Capital and Shadow Creek Holdings. Loan sharks, I said. Sophisticated loan sharks, she corrected. They operate in the gray areas. They lend to desperate people who have assets they cannot quite touch yet. I read the text. My eyes watered. The legal language was dense, but the meaning was clear enough for a man who had read cattle contracts his whole life. It was a lien on Freedom Hill. But he does not own the ranch, I said, my voice rising. It is mine. My name is on the deed. He cannot mortgage my land. Technically, no, Ms. Patel said. But look at Clause 14. I looked. It was a paragraph about future inheritance interests. He borrowed against his expectation of inheriting the ranch, she explained. It is called a probate loan. Usually they are small. But this one is massive, and there is a trigger clause, Hiram. This is why they are coming for you. Trigger clause. If the grantor, that is you, becomes incapacitated or deceased, the full amount becomes due immediately, she said. And if the borrower, Darnell, cannot pay, which we know he cannot, the lenders have the right to force a sale of the asset to recoup their losses. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. So if I die, they take the ranch, I asked. Yes, she said. And if I am declared senile, if I am locked away in a home and Darnell gets power of attorney, then he has control, she said. He becomes the trustee. The lenders will call the loan. Darnell will have no choice. He will have to sell Freedom Hill to pay them back, or they will break his legs and take it anyway. It all made sense. The terrible twisted logic of it fell into place like the tumblers of a lock. This was not just about Kylie wanting a swimming pool. This was not just about Darnell wanting a golf course. This was life or death for them. They were in a trap of their own making, and I was the only way out. They needed me gone. They needed me declared incompetent so they could feed my land to the wolves that were hunting them. My son, I whispered. My own boy. He sold me out to save himself. He is desperate. Hiram, Ms. Patel said gently. Desperate men do terrible things. He is not desperate, I said, my voice hardening. He is weak. There is a difference. A desperate man works harder. A weak man steals from his father. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the town I had known all my life. I saw the feed store where I bought grain. I saw the church where I married Etta. They were going to lose it all. The ranch, the history, the legacy of the Douglas family. It was going to be chopped up and sold to criminals to pay for a gambling debt. I cannot let that happen, I said. I will burn the house down myself before I let loan sharks take Etta's garden. We can stop them, Ms. Patel said, but we have to act now. Once they file for guardianship, it freezes everything. You won't be able to sign a check, let alone a deed. We have to move the asset before they can lock it down. I turned back to her. You said you had a buyer. Ms. Patel nodded. She pulled another folder from her briefcase. This one was blue. The National Black Farmers Association, she said. They have been looking for a flagship property in Texas, a place to train young farmers, a place to preserve the heritage of black agriculture. They want a teaching farm, Hiram. They want to keep the name. Freedom Hill would remain Freedom Hill. I felt a lump in my throat. A teaching farm, young people learning to work the soil, learning the value of a hard day's labor. Etta would have loved that. She always said the land was a teacher. How much, I asked. $5.5 million, Ms. Patel said. Cash. They have the grant money ready. They can wire it to a trust account within 48 hours. $5.5 million. It was more money than I had ever seen. It was enough to buy a castle. It was enough to fix everything. But it would not fix my son. Money could not fix what was broken in him. And what about Darnell, I asked. What happens to him when the land is gone? Ms. Patel looked at me over her glasses. When the land is gone, the collateral for his loan is gone, she said. The lenders will call the debt. He will be on his own. He will be destroyed, I said. He destroyed himself, Hiram, she said. You are just refusing to let him take you down with him. I looked at the blue folder. I thought about the fence posts I dug. I thought about the ribs in the dirt. I thought about the way Kylie looked at me like I was a stain on her dress. Do it, I said. Ms. Patel opened the folder. She laid out the contract. I need your signature here, here, and here, she said. And I need your bank details for the offshore trust we discussed. I took the gold pen she offered. It felt heavy in my hand. I signed my name. Hiram Douglas. The letters were bold and angry. Done, I said, putting the pen down. Ms. Patel smiled. A shark's smile. Congratulations, Hiram, she said. You just became a very wealthy man, and a homeless one. Not homeless, I said. Free. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost noon. Darnell and Kylie would be looking for me. They would be worried. Not about me, but about their plan. Ms. Patel, I said. I need one more thing. Name it. I need time, I said. If we tell them now, they might do something desperate. They might try to hurt me physically before the money clears. Or they might run. I do not want them to run. What do you want to do? She asked. I want to play their game, I said. They want a senile old fool. I am going to give them the performance of a lifetime. I want 2 weeks. 2 weeks? She asked. That is risky. I need 2 weeks to move my things out slowly, I said. I need 2 weeks to say goodbye to my land. And I need 2 weeks to set the table for the final meal. What kind of meal? A celebration, I said. I am going to tell them I agree. I am going to tell them I will sign their papers. I will let them plan a victory party. I want them to invite all their fancy friends. I want them to toast their success. And then, Ms. Patel asked, and then I said I am going to introduce them to the new owner. Ms. Patel laughed. It was a dry, dusty sound. You are a cruel man, Hiram Douglas. They learned from the best, I said. I stood up. I straightened my vest. Can you give me a ride back to the main road, I asked. I want to walk the rest of the way. I want them to see me stumbling home dusty and confused. Ms. Patel gathered the papers, the deed, the evidence of my son's betrayal. She locked them in her briefcase. Let us go, she said. The show must go on. We drove back in silence. The air conditioning hummed, but I did not feel it anymore. I felt the heat of the fire I was about to light. She dropped me off a mile from the gate. I got out. I rubbed dirt on my face. I untucked my shirt. I messed up my hair. I started walking toward the house where my enemies lived. I was walking into the lion's den. But the lions did not know that the hunter was already inside. I saw Darnell's car coming down the driveway. He saw me. He sped up. He jumped out of the car before it stopped rolling. Dad, he screamed, running toward me. Dad, where have you been? I looked at him. I let my eyes go wide and vacant. I let my hands shake. I got lost, son, I mumbled. I just wanted to go to town, but I got lost. Darnell grabbed my arm. His grip was hard. Get in the car, he said. Jesus, Dad, you scared us to death. Kylie was right. You can't be out here alone. He shoved me into the passenger seat. I looked out the window as we drove back to the house. I looked at the fields of Freedom Hill. Goodbye, old friend, I thought. Then I looked at my son. Hello, enemy. Let the games begin. The house smelled of pot roast and betrayal when Darnell dragged me through the front door. He was acting the part of the relieved son, gripping my arm tight enough to leave bruises, telling me how worried he was. I let my head hang low. I let my feet shuffle on the hardwood. I played the confused old man who had wandered off into the heat, but inside my chest my heart was a cold iron hammer beating a rhythm of war. We walked into the dining room and there was a stranger sitting at my table. He was a small man with thin hair slicked back with too much oil and a suit that cost more than my tractor but fit him poorly. He had a face like a ferret, sharp and hungry, and his eyes darted around the room appraising the furniture, the silver, the paintings on the wall. Dad, Darnell said, guiding me to my chair like I was an invalid. This is an old friend of mine from college, Dr. Finch. He was in the neighborhood and I invited him for dinner. I thought it would be good for you to have some company. Dr. Finch stood up and extended a hand that felt like a dead fish. "Mr. Douglas," he said, his voice oily and patronizing, "it is a pleasure. Darnell has told me so much about you." I shook his hand. I did not squeeze. I let my hand be limp. "Who are you again?" I asked, blinking slowly. "I am Dr. Finch Hiram. You can call me Lawrence. I specialize in geriatric wellness." Geriatric wellness. That was a fancy way of saying he was a paid hitman for the mind. I knew exactly what he was. He was the rubber stamp Darnell needed. He was the man who would sign the paper saying Hiram Douglas was unfit to manage his own affairs. Kylie came in from the kitchen carrying a platter of roast beef. She was wearing a floral apron over her designer clothes, trying to look domestic. She smiled at the doctor. "Dinner is served," she sang out. "Hiram, you must be starving after your little adventure today. You really must be more careful." I sat down. I looked at the food. I looked at the 3 predators sitting around my table. I felt a surge of revulsion so strong I almost gagged, but I picked up my fork. I had to eat. I had to keep my strength up. "So Hiram, Dr. Finch began, before I had even taken a bite. Darnell tells me you have lived on this ranch your whole life. That is impressive. Tell me, do you remember what year you bought your first parcel of land?" It was a test, a baseline question. I chewed my meat slowly. It was dry. Kylie never could cook a roast like Etta. 1974, I said. "Very good," Finch said, nodding as if I had performed a magic trick. "And do you know what day it is today?" I looked at him. I let my eyes wander around the room. I saw Darnell tense up. I saw Kylie lean forward. They wanted me to fail. They wanted me to say it was Tuesday when it was Sunday. "It is Sunday," I said. "The 4th of July was yesterday." I made ribs. Darnell winced at the mention of the ribs. "Yes," Dr. Finch said, scribbling something on a small notepad he had placed next to his plate. "And the year." 2024, I said. "Excellent. Now, Hiram, I like to ask my older patients some fun trivia just to keep the mind sharp. Can you tell me who the President of the United States is?" I named the President, and the one before him. I named him too. Finch smiled a thin, tight smile. He seemed disappointed. He wanted a confused old man, and I was giving him a history teacher. "How about something harder?" he said. "Who was the 15th president?" I paused. I saw Darnell exchange a look with Kylie. This was it. This was the trap. Who knows the 15th president off the top of their head? If I missed it, he would write down cognitive decline. If I got it right, he would probably say I was fixating on the past. I took a sip of water. I thought about the books in my study. I thought about the history of this country, the history of my people. "James Buchanan," I said, "served from 1857 to 1861, just before Lincoln. He was a bachelor." Finch stopped writing. He blinked. "That is correct," he said. His voice had lost some of its oily charm. "You know your history." "I know a lot of things," I said. "Let us try something else," Finch said. He was getting agitated now. He leaned over the table, invading my space. "Let us talk about the ranch. Darnell says you manage the finances. That must be difficult with all the modern changes. Do you remember how many heads of cattle you sold last quarter?" Darnell smirked. He knew I did the books by hand in a ledger. He thought I was behind the times. He thought I guessed at the numbers. I put down my fork. I looked Finch in the eye. I decided to drop the mask just an inch, just enough to show him the steel underneath. "We sold 142 head," I said. 80 steers, 62 heifers. The market was down 3% from the previous year, so we held back 20 head to fatten for the fall auction. The average weight was 1,240 pounds. The total gross was $213,480. After feed, vet bills, and transport, the net was $142,000. The table went silent. Darnell's mouth hung open. He did not know those numbers. He never looked at the books. He just looked at the bank balance and wondered why it wasn't higher. Finch looked at his notepad. He looked at me. He looked confused. "That is very specific, Hiram," he said. "Do you have those numbers written down somewhere?" I tapped my temple. "Right here," I said. "I never forget a number, Dr. Finch. I remember every calf born on this land for 40 years. I remember every drought. I remember every loan." I looked at Darnell. "And I remember every dollar that goes missing," I added. Darnell choked on his water. He started coughing. Kylie slapped him on the back, her eyes wide with panic. Dr. Finch cleared his throat. He was losing control of the interview. He needed to regain the upper hand. He needed to find a weakness. "Well, memory for old facts is often preserved in dementia," he said, using a tone that sounded like he was explaining physics to a toddler. "It is the short-term memory that goes first, and the judgment. For example, Darnell tells me you have been refusing to take your blood pressure medication. That can cause confusion. I do not take blood pressure medication," I said. "My pressure is 120/80, always has been." Finch frowned. He pulled a folder from his briefcase, which was sitting on the floor. He opened it. It was a fake medical file. I could see the fresh white paper. "According to this file provided by your family, you are on lisinopril," he said, "and you have been prescribed donepezil for early onset cognitive decline." I laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound. "Lisinopril causes a dry cough," I said. "I do not cough. And donepezil is a cholinesterase inhibitor. It is used to treat symptoms of Alzheimer's, but it has a side effect, Dr. Finch. It causes bradycardia, slow heart rate. If I was taking that, my pulse would be resting at 50. I held out my wrist to him. "Check it," I challenged. Finch stared at my wrist. He did not move. He was a doctor, or at least he played one, but he had just been schooled on pharmacology by a cattle rancher. "How do you know that he snapped?" "My wife, Etta," I said, my voice softening. "She had Alzheimer's. I took care of her for 5 years. I administered every pill. I researched every side effect. I know more about memory loss than you ever will because I watched the woman I loved fade away day by day. I know what it looks like, Dr. Finch, and I know what it does not look like." I leaned forward. "It does not look like me." Finch slammed the folder shut. His face was red. He looked at Darnell with pure venom. "I thought you said he was incoherent," Finch hissed. "I thought you said he was wandering and babbling." Darnell stammered. "He was just this morning. He forgot his keys. He got lost walking to town," Sundowning Finch muttered. "Fluctuating cognition. It is possible. But this is not typical presentation." He looked at me with a mixture of fear and hatred. I was not playing the game. I was breaking the rules. "I think I have seen enough for tonight," Finch said, standing up abruptly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I need to review my notes. I need to consult with some colleagues." He did not want to consult colleagues. He wanted to get away from the old man who knew too much. I stood up too. I moved slowly, feigning the stiffness of age again, putting the mask back on. Leaving so soon, I asked, "You did not even finish your roast." "I have an early morning," Finch said. He did not offer to shake my hand again. Darnell jumped up. "I will walk you out, Lawrence." Kylie stood up too. "I will get your coat." They rushed him to the door like they were escaping a fire. They left me standing alone in the dining room. I waited until they were in the foyer. The front door opened and closed. But I knew they had not all left. Finch was leaving, but Darnell and Kylie would step out onto the porch to talk to him, to conspire. I moved. I did not walk like an old man now. I moved with the silent grace of a hunter. I slipped through the kitchen and into the mudroom that opened onto the side of the porch. I cracked the window just an inch. The night air drifted in, carrying the sound of crickets and the hushed, angry voices of my enemies. I reached into the inside pocket of my vest. My hand brushed against the deed, the paper that was my shield and my sword. Next to it was my phone. I pulled it out. I tapped the screen. Voice recorder. Record. I held the phone up to the crack in the window. The voices were clear. "What the hell was that?" Darnell Finch's voice was a low growl. "You told me he was a vegetable. You told me he was drooling on himself." "That man is sharper than I am." He quoted drug interactions to me, Darnell. He remembered cattle prices from last year. "He has good days and bad days," Kylie interjected, her voice shrill with panic. "Today was a good day." "But you saw him yesterday. He was a mess. I cannot sign a competency hearing affidavit based on that performance," Finch spat. "If a judge talks to him for 5 minutes, the case will be thrown out, and I will lose my license for filing a false report. I am not risking my practice for your debts, Darnell." "Lawrence, please," Darnell begged. "We paid you $10,000. "You paid me to evaluate a senile man," Finch said, "not to frame a genius." "Keep the money," Kylie said. "Keep the 10,000. We will give you another 10,000. Just help us. There has to be a way." Silence. I could hear Finch breathing. I could hear the greed warring with the fear in his mind. "There is one way," Finch said slowly, "but it is risky, and it will cost you 50,000, not 10. 50. Darnell choked. "We do not have 50. You will when you sell the ranch, Kylie said quickly. We will pay you from the sale. Just tell us what to do. If he is too lucid, we have to make him not lucid, Finch whispered. My grip tightened on the phone. What do you mean? Darnell asked. Pharmacological intervention, Finch said. I can write a prescription for a heavy sedative, haloperidol, or maybe a high dose of benzodiazepines. We tell him it is for his heart or his vitamins. If we get enough of that into his system, he won't be quoting history. He will be slurring his words and stumbling. He will look exactly like the senile old fool you said he was. You want to drug him? Darnell asked, his voice trembling. It is the only way, Finch said. We sedate him. We call emergency services saying he is having a psychotic episode. By the time they get here, he will be incoherent. They will take him to my facility for a 72-hour hold. Once he is in my building behind my doors, I control the narrative. I can keep him sedated until the court hearing. The judge will see a man who cannot even feed himself. You get the guardianship. You sell the ranch. Everyone wins, Jesus, Darnell whispered. Is it safe? He is old, Finch said dismissively. His metabolism is slow. He will sleep. That is all. Okay, Kylie said instantly. Do it. Write the prescription. Kylie, Darnell said, weak as ever. Do you want to lose everything? Kylie snapped at him. Do you want the loan sharks to come for us? This is the only way. Okay, Darnell said. Okay, do it. I stopped the recording. My hand was shaking. Not from fear, but from a cold, dark rage. They were going to poison me. They were going to drug me like a rabid dog and drag me out of my own house in front of the neighbors. They were going to steal my mind so they could steal my land. I saved the file. I sent it immediately to Ms. Patel. Then I sent it to my own email. Then I backed it up to the cloud. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. I looked at my hands. They were the hands that had held Darnell when he was a baby. They were the hands that had built his crib. Now they were the hands that would destroy him. I heard the car start and drive away. I heard the front door open. I quickly moved back to the dining room. I sat down at the table. I picked up my fork. When Darnell and Kylie walked back in, I was staring at my plate looking lost and confused. Where did the nice man go? I asked, my voice quavering. He had to leave. Dad, Darnell said. He looked pale. He looked like a man who had just sold his soul and realized the price was too low. Time for bed, Hiram, Kylie said. Her voice was cheerful, but her eyes were dead. You have a big day tomorrow. We are going to start a new vitamin regimen. It will make you feel so much better. I looked at her. I smiled a vacuous, empty smile. That sounds nice, dear, I said. I always like to feel better. I stood up and shuffled toward my bedroom. I went into my room and closed the door. I locked it. I pushed a heavy chair under the knob. I would not sleep tonight. I would not eat or drink anything they gave me. Tomorrow the war would begin in earnest, but they did not know that I had already called in the cavalry. They were bringing poison. I was bringing the truth. And the truth I had learned on the ranch is that poison kills the weak, but it only makes the strong mad. I sat by the window and watched the moon rise over Freedom Hill. Just wait, I whispered to the night. Just wait until the party. The morning sun had barely dried the dew on the pasture grass when the invasion began. I was sitting on the front porch, nursing a cup of black coffee and watching the longhorns graze in the south field. My head was clear. My resolve was iron. I had not slept much, but I did not feel tired. I felt the cold hum of adrenaline that comes before you break a wild horse. I heard the crunch of gravel before I saw them. It was not the sound of a working truck. It was the soft purr of luxury engines. 3 black SUVs rolled up my driveway, kicking up a cloud of white dust that settled on my porch railing. Kylie stepped out of the lead vehicle. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat that looked ridiculous on a working ranch. She held a roll of blueprints under her arm like a weapon. Darnell got out of the passenger side looking hungover and nervous. He refused to meet my eyes. Then came the others. 4 men in slim suits and expensive loafers stepping gingerly onto the dirt like they were afraid it might bite them. They carried laser measuring tools and tablets. Architects, developers, vultures in Italian leather. I stayed in my rocking chair. I did not wave. I did not smile. I just rocked. Creak, thump, creak, thump. Kylie did not even acknowledge me. She turned to the lead architect, a tall man with a ponytail and a sneer. Okay, she said, her voice carrying over the morning breeze. Let us start with the perimeter. I want the main entrance moved to the east side. We need a grand approach, something with fountains. Fountains. In Texas. In a drought. The architect nodded, tapping on his tablet. We can do that, Mrs. Douglas. We will have to grade the land down about 6 feet to get the right elevation. Grade the land. That meant scraping away the topsoil my grandfather had nurtured for 50 years. They began to walk around the property. They walked right past me as if I were a piece of porch furniture. I stood up slowly, my joints popping, and followed them at a distance. I shuffled my feet. I let my mouth hang open a little. I played the ghost at their feast. They stopped in front of the old barn. It was built of rough-hewn cedar, silvered by the sun and rain. It leaned a little to the left, but it was strong. It smelled of hay and sweet feed and hard work. This has to go, Kylie said, waving a hand at it dismissively. It is an eyesore. It blocks the sight line to the valley. The architect made a note. Demolition, he said. We can use the reclaimed wood for accents in the wine cellar. It adds a rustic touch. A rustic touch. That barn was where I taught Darnell to ride a horse. It was where I calved 1,000 heifers during freezing winter nights. It was where Etta and I had our first kiss when we were teenagers hiding from her daddy. Tear it down, Kylie commanded. We will put the infinity pool here. I want a wet edge that looks like it drops right into the sunset. I clenched my fists inside my pockets. An infinity pool on the grave of my history. They moved on. They talked about paving over the vegetable garden to make a tennis court. They talked about ripping out the native mesquite to plant palm trees. They talked about erasing Freedom Hill and replacing it with a plastic paradise for people who played golf and drank cocktails at noon. Then they walked toward the oak tree. It stands alone on a small rise about 50 yards from the house. It is a live oak 300 years old. Its branches are as thick as whiskey barrels, spreading out wide and low to hug the ground. Its roots go deep into the limestone, drinking from the same water table that has kept my family alive for generations. But it is not just a tree. 5 years ago, on a Tuesday morning just like this one, I stood under that tree with a ceramic urn in my hands. It was where Etta wanted to be. She said she wanted to be part of the shade that cooled me when I came in from the fields. I had scattered her ashes around the base of the trunk. I had watered them into the soil with my own tears. That tree was Etta. Her spirit was in the sap. Her laughter was in the rustle of the leaves. Kylie stopped in front of it. She put her hands on her hips. This thing is a problem, she said. The architect nodded. It is huge. The root system will interfere with the foundation of the guest casitas you want to build here. And it drops leaves everywhere. It is messy. Cut it down, Kylie said. The words hit me like a physical blow. Get a crew out here tomorrow, she continued. Grind the stump. I want this area flat and clean. No. The word came out of my mouth before I could stop it. It was not a senile mumble. It was a command. Kylie turned around. She looked annoyed. Dad, go back to the porch, she said. We are working. You cannot cut that tree, I said. I took a step forward. My voice was shaking, but not from age, from rage. Why not, she asked, rolling her eyes. It is just an old tree, Hiram. It is half dead anyway. It is not dead, I said. It is Etta. Your mother is there, Darnell. Her ashes are in the roots. You know that. I looked at my son. He looked at the ground. He looked at his shoes. Mom is gone. Dad, he mumbled. It is just a tree. We need the space for the casitas. Just a tree. The architect laughed, a short dismissive bark. Look, old-timer, he said, stepping toward me. Progress happens. We can plant you a nice new tree somewhere else, maybe a decorative pear tree, something that does not make a mess. Now be a good fellow and get out of the way. Need to take measurements. He reached out to push me aside. He put his hand on my shoulder. I did not move. I stood like a rock. Do not touch me, I said. The architect sneered. He pushed harder. Darnell, step in, Kylie snapped. Take him inside. He is making a scene. Darnell started walking toward me. Dad, come on. Let us go watch TV. I backed away. I did not let Darnell touch me. I turned and walked quickly back to the house. He is finally listening, Kylie said, loud enough for me to hear. God, he is exhausting. Just cut the damn tree down. I went into the house. I went straight to the gun cabinet in the hallway. It was locked, but the key was in my pocket. I opened the glass door. I reached past the rifles and took out the old double-barrel 12-gauge shotgun. It was a coach gun, short and heavy. I had used it for snakes and coyotes for 30 years. It was not loaded. I kept the shells in a separate box in the safe. I did not load it. I did not need to load it. I needed a prop. I needed a symbol. I grabbed a rag and a small bottle of gun oil from the bottom shelf. I walked back out onto the porch. The group was still gathered around Eda's tree. The architect had a can of orange spray paint. He was shaking it. Clack, clack, clack. He was about to mark my wife's grave for destruction. I sat down on the top step of the porch. I laid the shotgun across my knees. I broke the breech open. The sound of the steel snapping open was loud in the morning air. Clack! Everyone froze. The architect dropped the spray paint can. It rolled into the grass. Kylie spun around. Her eyes went wide when she saw the weapon. "Hiram, what are you doing?" she screamed. Darnell put his hands up. Dad put the gun down. I did not look at them. I poured a little oil on the rag. I started wiping the barrel, slow circular motions. "I am just cleaning it," I said, my voice calm and distant. "It has been sitting too long. Gets rusty if you do not tend to it, just like a mind." Dad put it away. Darnell yelled, "You are scaring people." I looked up then. I looked past them at the tree. "You fellows need to be careful over there," I said. My voice was helpful, almost friendly. Careful of what the architect asked. His voice trembling. He was eyeing the twin barrels of the shotgun. "Wasps," I said. I snapped the breech closed. The sound echoed like a thunderclap. Click-clack. "Big nest of red wasps in that old tree," I said. "Nasty buggers. They get agitated when people make noise, or when people disrespect the dead." I raised the gun. I did not point it at them. I pointed it at the sky. I sighted along the barrel as if checking for straightness. "Sometimes I have to shoot the nest down," I said, "just to keep the peace. You never know when I might see a wasp. My eyes aren't what they used to be. I might miss the wasp and hit something else, something in a suit." The architect turned pale. He looked at the gun. He looked at me. He looked at the crazy old man with the weapon who was talking about wasps and death in the same breath. "I am not doing this," he said. "No amount of money is worth getting shot by a senile cowboy." He turned and walked fast toward his SUV. He did not run, but it was close. "Wait!" Kylie yelled. "Where are you going? We have a contract." "Cancel it," he shouted over his shoulder. "I am not working in a war zone. Call me when the old man is in a home." The other men followed him. They scrambled into their cars like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Engines roared to life. Tires spun in the gravel. In less than a minute, they were gone. Kylie stood alone by the tree. She was shaking with fury. She marched toward the porch. Her face was twisted into a mask of pure hate. "You did that on purpose," she screamed. "You crazy old bat. You threatened them." I looked at her with wide, innocent eyes. I broke the gun open again. "I warned them about the wasps, Kylie," I said. "Safety first. You always say safety first." She stomped up the stairs. She stood over me. For a second I thought she was going to hit me. "Give me that gun," she demanded. I held on to it. "No," I said. "It needs cleaning. It is dirty. Everything here is getting dirty." Darnell ran up the steps. He was sweating. "Kylie, leave him alone," he said. "He does not know what he is doing." "He knows exactly what he is doing," she hissed. "Look at him. He is smiling." I was not smiling. My face was a stone. "You ruined it," she spat at me. "You ruined the consultation. Do you know how hard it was to get that firm out here?" I went back to wiping the barrel. "Did you know Eda planted those roses?" I asked, pointing to the garden they wanted to pave. She pricked her finger on a thorn the day we found out she was pregnant with Darnell. She said it was a blood oath to the land. "Shut up about Eda," Kylie shrieked. "She is dead, Hiram. Dead. And that tree is coming down whether you like it or not. I will hire a crew myself. I will cut it down with my own hands if I have to." I stopped wiping. I looked at her. "If you touch that tree," I said very softly, "the wasps will come out, and they will sting." She stared at me. She saw something in my eyes that made her step back. Fear. It was fear of the unknown, fear of the madness she claimed I had, but which she was now seeing was a weapon. "Come on," Kylie Darnell said, pulling her arm. "Let us go inside. I will call them back. I will explain." She pulled away from him. She glared at me one last time. "This isn't over, old man," she said. "Tomorrow you are going to the doctor. And after that you won't have any guns. You won't have any trees. You will have a padded room." She stormed into the house. Darnell followed her, casting a worried glance back at me. I sat on the porch alone. The dust from the SUVs settled back onto the driveway. The silence returned to Freedom Hill. I looked at the oak tree. It stood tall and proud, its branches swaying gently in the wind. "I am sorry, Etta," I whispered. I had to scare them. I finished cleaning the gun. I oiled the mechanism until it was smooth as silk. They thought they could bulldoze my life. They thought they could erase my history with a checkbook and a bulldozer. They were wrong. I stood up and walked into the house. I put the gun back in the cabinet, but I kept the key in my pocket. I went to my study. I had work to do. I had to move the rest of my personal papers. I had to secure the family Bible. I had to pack the things that mattered. Because Kylie was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Tomorrow they would try the drugs. Tomorrow they would try the poison. But tomorrow I would be ready. I touched the phone in my pocket where the recording of their conspiracy was safe. Let them come, I thought. Let them bring their poison. I have the antidote. And the antidote is $5.5 million and a one-way ticket to hell for both of them. The sun went down, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and blood red. I sat in my study listening to the house settle. After the incident with the shotgun, the silence was different. It was not peaceful. It was heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Light, quick steps. Not Darnell's heavy trudge. Kylie. She knocked on the door. It was a soft, tentative knock, very different from her usual pounding. "Dad," she called out, her voice muffled by the oak. "Are you hungry? I made dinner." I did not answer immediately. I looked at the recording on my phone. The evidence of their plan to drug me was safe in the cloud. I knew what was coming. Finch had told them to sedate me, to make me incoherent, to turn the lion into a lamb before the slaughter. "Dad," she called again. "Please come out. We want to apologize. We want to start over." I stood up. I smoothed my vest. I checked my face in the mirror. I put on the mask of the weary, confused old man. I opened the door. Kylie was standing there wearing a smile that looked like it had been painted on with a trowel. She was dressed in a modest sweater and jeans, trying to look like the wholesome ranch wife she never was. "I made your favorite," she said, "fried chicken and collard greens, and cornbread, just like Etta used to make." The mention of Etta's cooking was a calculated move. She was trying to bypass my defenses by aiming for my heart. "I am not very hungry," I said, my voice raspy. "You have to eat, Hiram," she said, linking her arm through mine. "You did not eat anything all day. Come on." "Darnell is waiting." She led me to the dining room. The table was set with the good china. Candles were burning. It looked like a scene from a magazine, except for the tension that vibrated in the air like a high-tension wire. Darnell was sitting at his place, looking pale and sweaty. He jumped when I entered. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice cracking. You look good." I sat down at the head of the table. I looked at the food. It looked fine. It smelled fine. But I knew better than to trust my eyes. I ate slowly, picking at the chicken. It was greasy and underseasoned. Etta would have been ashamed to serve it, but I chewed and swallowed, nodding appreciatively. "This is nice," I mumbled. "Very nice." "I am glad you like it, Dad," Darnell said. He was eating fast, shoving food into his mouth as if he wanted to get the meal over with. "We are sorry about earlier," Kylie said. She was not eating. She was watching me. Her eyes tracked every movement of my fork. "We were just stressed. The architects. They confused us. We should have listened to you about the tree." I nodded slowly. "The tree is important," I said. "Etta is there." "Yes," Kylie said. "We know. We respect that." She reached for a teapot that was sitting in the center of the table. It was a ceramic pot I had never seen before. "I made some special tea," she said. "It is a calming blend, chamomile and valerian root. It will help us all relax after such a hard day." She poured a cup for Darnell. Then she poured a cup for me. I watched her hands. They were trembling. The spout of the teapot rattled against the rim of my cup. A few drops splashed onto the saucer. She was nervous. She was terrified. "Here you go, Hiram," she said, sliding the cup toward me. "Drink up. It is best while it is hot." She did not pour a cup for herself. I lifted the cup. Steam curled up into my face. I brought it closer to my nose, pretending to savor the aroma. Underneath the smell of chamomile, there was something else. A sharp, sickly sweet scent. It reminded me of the bitter almonds that grow wild down by the creek. The ones we tell the cattle to stay away from because they will make them sick. It was the smell of poison. Or in this case, the heavy chemical tang of the sedatives Finch had prescribed. Haloperidol, benzos, a cocktail designed to turn my brain into mush. It smells different, I said, lowering the cup. It is a special blend, Kylie said quickly. Organic. Very expensive. Drink it, Dad, Darnell said. He had already finished half of his cup. It is good. I feel better already. He did look more relaxed. His shoulders had dropped, his eyes were a little glassy, but his cup was safe. Mine was the weapon. I need to wash my hands, I said suddenly. They are sticky from the chicken. I started to stand up. No, Kylie said too loudly. Sit down, Hiram. Here, use this napkin. She thrust a napkin at me. I took it. I made a show of wiping my hands, but I was clumsy. I let my hands spasm. I knocked the salt shaker over. Then I hit the water glass. Oh no, I muttered. Look at me. Clumsy old fool. Water spilled across the tablecloth, heading for Darnell's plate. Dad, watch out, Darnell said, pushing his chair back to avoid the spill. I am sorry, I said, standing up. I will get a towel. No, I will get it, Kylie said, jumping up. Just sit there. Darnell, go help your father. I have to pee, Darnell announced. The nervous energy and the water he had gulped down were catching up with him. I will be right back. He stood up and walked quickly toward the hallway bathroom. Kylie was already in the kitchen grabbing towels. For 10 seconds, I was alone in the dining room. I looked at the 2 cups of tea. They looked identical, blue ceramic mugs steaming gently. My hand moved faster than it had in 20 years. I reached out. I grabbed Darnell's cup, which was half empty. I grabbed my cup, which was full. I switched them. I placed my full poisoned cup in front of Darnell's empty plate. I placed his half-empty safe cup in front of mine. Then I sat back down. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my face was stone. Kylie rushed back in with a towel. She started mopping up the water. It is okay, she said, her voice tight. No harm done. Just sit. Relax. Drink your tea. Darnell came back. He looked relieved. He sat down heavily. He looked at the cup in front of him. He did not notice it was fuller than before. He did not notice it was on the wrong side of his plate. He just saw tea. He picked it up. Cheers, Dad, he said, raising the mug. To family. I picked up the cup that used to be his. To family, I said. I watched my son drink. He took a long swallow, then another. He drained the cup. I took a small sip of mine. It tasted like chamomile, just chamomile. Good tea, I said. Kylie watched me. She was waiting for my eyes to roll back. She was waiting for the slur. Darnell let out a long sigh. Wow, he said. That stuff really kicks in fast. I feel heavy. That is the valerian, Kylie said, keeping her eyes on me. It is very relaxing. Darnell blinked. He shook his head like a dog trying to shake off water. No, I mean, really heavy, he slurred. His words were thick, like his tongue had swollen up in his mouth. Dad, he said, looking at me. Why is the room spinning? I watched him. The drugs were hitting him like a freight train. Finch must have prescribed a dose meant to knock out a horse. Darnell. Kylie said, looking at him for the first time. What is wrong? I cannot feel my legs, Darnell mumbled. He tried to stand up, but his knees buckled. He slumped back into his chair. His head lolled to one side. Darnell, Kylie screamed. She rushed to his side. Darnell, look at me. He looked at her, but his eyes were not focusing. One pupil was blown wide. Mom, he whispered. I want to go home. Then his eyes rolled back in his head. His chin hit his chest. He slid sideways out of the chair and hit the floor with a heavy thud. Darnell, Kylie shrieked. She fell to her knees beside him, shaking him. Darnell, wake up! I sat there calmly holding my cup of tea. Is he asleep? I asked, my voice mild and curious. He is not asleep, you idiot! Kylie yelled at me. Something is wrong. He passed out. She looked at me. Then she looked at the cup on the floor. The cup Darnell had dropped. A small puddle of tea was spreading on the rug. She looked at my cup. Her face went white, pure chalk white. She realized what had happened. She knew there was poison in one cup. She knew she had given it to me. But Darnell was the one on the floor. She looked at me with horror. Not just fear, but a deep primal terror. She was looking at a ghost. She was looking at a man who should be unconscious but was sitting there sipping tea and watching her. "What did you do?" she whispered. "Me?" I asked, blinking innocently. "I did not do anything, Kylie. I just spilled the water. You switched them," she hissed. "You knew." "I do not know what you are talking about, dear," I said. I stood up. I walked over to where Darnell was lying. He was breathing heavy, snoring breaths. Drool was pooling at the corner of his mouth. "Poor boy," I said. "He must be exhausted, working so hard on the ranch. All that stress. It wears a man down." I bent down. I grabbed Darnell under the arms. "Help me get him to bed," I said. Kylie did not move. She was frozen. She was trapped in her own nightmare. She could not call an ambulance. If she did, she would have to explain why her husband had enough sedatives in his system to tranquilize an elephant. She would have to explain where the drugs came from. She would have to explain why she tried to give them to me. She was stuck. I lifted Darnell. He was dead weight, but I was strong. I dragged him toward the bedroom. "Come on, Kylie," I said. "Open the door. He needs to sleep it off." She scrambled up and ran to open the door. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely turn the knob. We got him onto the bed. I pulled his boots off. I covered him with a quilt. "He looks peaceful," I said. "Just like a baby." I turned to Kylie. She was backing away from me. She looked like she wanted to vomit. You are a monster," she whispered. "I am just a father, taking care of his son," I said. I walked past her. I walked out of the room and down the hall. I went into my study and locked the door. I sat down at my desk. My heart was racing now. That was close. Too close. But I had won. I had turned their weapon against them. Darnell would be out for 24 hours, maybe more. He would wake up with a headache that would split his skull. He would not remember much, but Kylie would remember. She would remember the look in my eyes. She would remember that her plan had failed spectacularly. And she would know that I knew. The game was escalating. They had tried to take my mind. Now they were going to try something more direct. I took the deed out of my pocket. I smoothed it out. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow I sign the papers. Tomorrow I sell the farm. And then the real party would begin. I listened to the house. It was quiet again except for the sound of Kylie sobbing softly in the other room. "Cry all you want," I thought. "You dug this grave. Now you have to lie in it. Or rather, your husband does." I leaned back in my chair and waited for the morning. I was not the prey anymore. I was the predator. And I was hungry for justice. The morning after the tea incident, the house felt hollow. Darnell was still in bed, groaning with a headache that sounded like a jackhammer was working inside his skull. The sedatives meant for me had done their work on him. He would be useless for another day at least. That left Kylie alone and desperate. And a desperate animal is the most dangerous kind. I walked through the living room and noticed it immediately. The silence was different. It was the silence of absence. The antique clock on the mantel was gone. The brass candlesticks that had stood on the sideboard for 50 years were missing. The house was being stripped. It was like watching a body lose weight from a wasting disease. Kylie was in the den. I could hear the ripping sound of packing tape. Zzzt, rip, zzzt, rip. It was the sound of my history being boxed up and sold for pennies on the dollar. I walked past the den door. I did not look in. I did not want her to see me yet. I needed to know the extent of the damage. I went to our bedroom, my bedroom, the room I had shared with Etta for 4 decades. I went to the dresser where her jewelry box sat. It was a beautiful thing made of cherry wood with a mother-of-pearl inlay. I had made it myself for our 10th anniversary. I opened the lid. My heart stopped. It was empty. The velvet lining was indented with the ghosts of the things that had lived there. The pearl necklace I bought when Darnell was born. The gold locket with her mother's picture. And most painful of all, the silver set. It was a heavy, intricate necklace, an earring set made by a Navajo silversmith in Santa Fe. We had driven there for our 40th anniversary. We had saved for 2 years for that trip. I remembered Etta putting it on in the shop mirror. Her hair was silver by then, and it matched the jewelry perfectly. She looked like a queen. "You should not spend this much, Hiram," she had said. "You earned it," I had told her. "You earned every ounce of silver for putting up with me." Now it was gone. Stolen by a woman who did not know the story. A woman who only saw the melt value of the metal. I felt a fire rise in my chest. It was not the cold, calculating rage of the day before. It was a hot, white flash of fury. I wanted to storm into the den. I wanted to tear the box from her hands. I wanted to scream at her until the windows rattled. That was Etta's. That was sacred. I turned and marched toward the door. My boots hit the floor hard. I was done pretending. I was done playing the fool. But then I stopped. My hand hovered over the doorknob. I looked at the empty jewelry box again. I thought about what Etta would say. She would say, "Hiram, it is just stuff. It is just metal and wood. You cannot take it with you." She would say, "Do not lose the war just to win a battle over a necklace." I took a deep breath. I let it out slowly. If I confronted Kylie now, she would panic. She might call the police and say I attacked her, or she might run. If she ran, Darnell would run too. And if they ran, the loan sharks would never find them. They would escape justice. And worse, if I stopped her now, I would blow my cover. The senile old man does not notice missing jewelry. The senile old man does not track inventory. I had to let it go. I had to sacrifice the silver to save the legacy. I walked out of the bedroom. I moved quietly now. I crept toward the den and peeked around the corner. Kylie was on the phone. She had the phone pressed between her shoulder and her ear while she taped up a box. "Yes, I can ship it today," she was saying. "Overnight. But I need the cash transfer immediately. No, I cannot wait for the appraisal. It is sterling silver. Vintage. It is worth double what I am asking." She was selling it to a pawnbroker online. She was liquidating my life to pay the daily interest on the debt Darnell had racked up. She was not even paying the principal, just the vigorish, just enough to keep the wolves away for another 24 hours. "Please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Just send the money. I have more. I have antiques. I have paintings. I can send you pictures." She looked pathetic. She looked small and mean and terrified. I stepped back into the shadows. I realized then that she was already in hell. She was living in a prison of her own making, a prison of debt and lies and fear. Selling Etta's jewelry would not save her. Nothing would save her. I turned away. I went to my study. I locked the door. I sat at my desk and looked at the empty space on the wall where the painting of the Longhorn used to be. She had taken that too while I was asleep. I did not care. Suddenly, I felt lighter. The house was empty, but I was full. I was full of purpose. These things were just anchors. They were heavy. They tied me to the past. But I was moving toward a future where I was free. I took out my phone. I dialed Ms. Patel. It rang once. "Hiram," she answered. "Is everything okay?" "No," I said. "They are selling the furniture. They sold Etta's silver." I heard her inhale sharply. "I can get an injunction," she said. "I can stop them." "No," I said. "Let it go. Let them sell it all. Let them strip the walls bare." "Hiram, are you sure? That is your property." "It is just stuff, Ms. Patel," I said. "It is just dust. The only thing that matters is the land. And the lesson." "Okay," she said. "What do you want to do?" "Speed it up," I said. "I cannot watch them pick the carcass for 2 weeks. I want to close the deal now." "How soon?" she asked. 48 hours, I said. "I want the money in the trust by Wednesday morning, and I want the new owners here Wednesday night." "Wednesday night?" she asked. "Why Wednesday?" "Because Wednesday is the party," I said. "Darnell thinks I am signing the power of attorney on Wednesday. He thinks he has won. He is inviting people." "It is tight, Hiram," she said. "We have to rush the title search. We have to rush the wire transfer." "Make it happen," I said. "I do not care what it costs. Pay the expedite fees. Grease the wheels. Just get it done." "I will do my best," she said. "Do not do your best," I said. "Do it." "I am tired, Ms. Patel. I am tired of living with thieves. I want them out of my house. I want them off my land." "I will call the association," she said. "I will tell them to bring the check." "And Ms. Patel," I added, "yes, make sure they bring their security team. When this bomb goes off, there is going to be shrapnel." "I understand," she said. "Stay safe, Hiram. Just 2 more days." I hung up. 2 days. 48 hours. I could do that. I could watch them sell the rest of the house. I could watch them pawn the silverware and the rugs. Let them take it. Let them think they are winning. Every item they stole was just another nail in their coffin. Every lie they told was just another shovelful of dirt on their grave. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the oak tree. It was still there. They had not touched it yet. That was the line. They could take the silver. They could take the paintings. But if they touched that tree, the deal was off and the shotgun would come back out. I unlocked the door and went back into the house. I walked into the kitchen. Kylie was there. She had finished packing the box. She looked flushed and sweaty. "Hi, Dad," she said too brightly. "You are up. How is Darnell?" "He is sleeping," I said. "He is very tired." "Yeah, well, he has been working hard," she lied. I looked at the counter. There was a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. Where are the silver knives? I asked. Kylie froze. Her eyes darted to the door where the box was waiting for the courier. Oh, she said. I sent them out. For polishing. You know how tarnished they were getting. I wanted them to look nice. For the party. For the party. That sounds nice, I said. You are always thinking of everything, Kylie. I reached into the drawer and took out a plastic spoon. I dipped it into the peanut butter jar. I will just use this, I said. I ate the peanut butter off the plastic spoon. It stuck to the roof of my mouth. It tasted like victory. I looked at Kylie. She was trembling. She was terrified I would look in the box. Do not worry, dear, I said, licking the spoon. I trust you. You know what is best. She let out a breath she had been holding. Thanks, Dad, she said. I really am trying. I know, I said. I know exactly what you are trying to do. I turned and walked away. I went to the living room and sat in my recliner. I turned on the television. I did not watch it. I just stared at the screen. I waited. I waited for the courier to come and take Etta's silver away. I waited for Darnell to wake up from his drug-induced stupor. I waited for the clock to tick down, tick-tock, 47 hours left. The house felt lighter. It felt ready to be abandoned. I closed my eyes and I saw the future. I saw the look on their faces when the truth hit them. It was worth the silver. It was worth the gold. It was worth everything. Because you cannot put a price tag on justice, and you cannot pawn the truth. Tuesday morning broke over Freedom Hill with a sky the color of a fresh bruise. The air was thick and humid, the kind of weather that makes your shirt stick to your back the moment you step outside. I was in the barn checking the feed levels for the horses. I did not need to do it. The horses were sold yesterday. The barn was empty. But old habits die hard, and I needed a place to think. I heard the screen door of the main house slam shut. Then I heard running footsteps on the gravel. It was Darnell. He looked terrible. His skin was gray and pasty like unbaked dough. His eyes were bloodshot and wide with terror. He was clutching his phone in his hand like it was a grenade that had just had the pin pulled. "Dad," he screamed. "Dad, where are you?" I stepped out of the shadows of the barn. I held a pitchfork in my hand. Not as a weapon, but as a prop. The old rancher doing his chores. "I am here, son," I said, my voice calm. "What is the fire?" Darnell ran to me and collapsed. He did not just sit down. He fell to his knees in the dirt and manure. He grabbed my legs. He was shaking so hard his teeth were chattering. "Help me," he sobbed. "Oh God, Dad, you have to help me. They are going to kill me." I looked down at him, a man of 32 years weeping in the dirt like a toddler who scraped his knee. But this was not a scraped knee. This was a mortal wound. "Who is going to kill you, Darnell?" I asked. He held up his phone. His hand was trembling so violently I had to grab his wrist to steady it. "Look," he choked out. "Look what they sent me." I looked at the screen. It was a photo. It was a picture of Darnell sleeping in his bed. It must have been taken through the bedroom window just a few hours ago. In the foreground of the photo, superimposed over my son's sleeping face, was a hand holding a black pistol. A silencer was screwed onto the barrel. Below the image was a text message. It was short. "Wednesday noon, or we collect in blood." I let go of his wrist. I felt a cold chill run through my veins. These were not idle threats. These were professionals. My son had not just borrowed money. He had borrowed money from devils. I looked at Darnell. He was burying his face in my pant leg, sobbing into the denim. "I messed up, Dad," he cried. "I messed up so bad. I tried to fix it. I tried to double down to win it back, but I lost. I lost it all." "Tell me the truth, Darnell," I said. My voice was hard. "No more lies." "How much?" "2 million, he whispered. "But with the interest and the penalties, it is almost 3. They want the money or they want the collateral." "The collateral?" I asked. "The ranch," he said. He looked up at me, his face streaked with tears and snot. I told them I was the heir. I told them I could sign it over if I couldn't pay. There it was, the confession. He had promised my land to killers. "But Dad, listen," he said, speaking fast now, desperate. "You do not have to sell it. You do not." I spoke to a lawyer, a different lawyer. He said we can do a bridge loan. We just mortgage the ranch temporarily. We pay off the sharks. Then I get a job. I work hard. I pay the mortgage back month by month. We keep the land. I swear I swear on Mom's grave I will fix this. I looked into his eyes. I searched for a shred of honesty. I searched for the son I had raised. But all I saw was a liar. I knew he was lying because Ms. Patel had shown me the documents. Darnell had not spoken to a lawyer about a bridge loan. He had already signed a pre-sale agreement with a shell company owned by the loan sharks. The paperwork was drawn up. The moment he got power of attorney, the ranch would be sold for pennies on the dollar to settle his debt. There was no mortgage. There was no payment plan. It was a liquidation. He was looking me in the eye and lying to save his life while selling mine. "Dad, please," he begged, squeezing my legs. "Just sign the power of attorney. That is all I need. Just sign the paper so I can get the loan. I will handle everything else. You won't have to do a thing. You can just retire. You can rest." I looked at the top of his head. I saw the thinning hair. I remembered when he was a baby and I could hold him in one hand. I remembered promising Etta I would protect him. But you cannot protect a man from his own soul. I felt something break inside me. It was the last tether, the last thin rope of hope that connected me to him. It snapped. The pity I felt for him evaporated. It was replaced by a cold clarity, like the air after a winter storm. I reached down and pried his hands off my legs. "Stand up, Darnell," I said. He looked at me confused. He scrambled to his feet, wiping his face with his sleeve. "Dad, will you do it?" he asked. "Will you sign?" I looked out at the pasture. I looked at the horizon where the blue sky met the green grass. "I will not let them kill you," I said. "Oh, thank God," Darnell exhaled. "Thank God. Dad, I love you. I love you so much." "Save it," I said. I turned to face him. I made my face go slack. I let my shoulders slump. I brought the senile old fool back to the surface. "I do not understand all this money business, son," I said, my voice sounding weary and confused. "Loans. Sharks. It is too much for my head. My head hurts, Darnell." "I know, Dad," Darnell said, stepping closer, eager now. "That is why you need to sign, so I can take the burden away, so I can handle the thinking." "Yes," I said. "You are smart, Darnell. You went to college. You know about digital money." "Yes, Dad, exactly." I sighed. A long, rattling sigh. "I suppose it is time," I said. "I suppose I am too old for this place. Kylie is right. I need to rest." Darnell's eyes lit up. It was sickening to watch. The terror was gone, instantly replaced by greed. "So you will sign?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "I will sign," I said. "But Darnell, I have a condition." "Anything. Dad, anything." "I do not want to sign in the dark," I said. "I do not want to sign in a back room like a thief. This ranch is my life. It was your grandfather's life. If I am going to give it up, I want to do it right." "What do you mean?" Darnell asked, suspicious. "I want a ceremony," I said. "I want a party." "A party?" Darnell asked. "Yes," I said. "Tomorrow is Wednesday. That is the deadline, right?" "Yes, noon." "Then we sign at noon," I said. "But I want people there. I want your friends. I want the people who think I am a crazy old man. I want them to see me pass the torch to you. I want to make a speech. I want to toast my son, the new owner of Freedom Hill." Darnell hesitated. He was thinking about the loan sharks. He was thinking about the risk. But then his vanity kicked in. I saw it happen. He imagined himself standing in front of his wealthy friends, the master of a $5 million estate. He imagined the respect. He imagined the power. "Kylie is planning a party anyway," I said. "She invited people for Wednesday night. To celebrate. Whatever she celebrates. Let us move it up. Let us make it a lunch. A handover lunch." Darnell smiled. It was a weak smile, but it was real. "A handover ceremony," he said, tasting the words. That sounds dignified, Dad." "Yes," I said, dignified. "I want to leave with my head held high. I want everyone to know that I gave this to you, that you did not take it, that I gave it." "Of course, Dad," Darnell said. He put his hand on my shoulder. It felt heavy and false. "You are doing the right thing. It is a noble thing. Go tell Kylie," I said. "Tell her to get the food ready. Tell her to invite the lawyer. Not my lawyer. Your lawyer. The one with the papers." "I will," Darnell said. He was already backing away. He was already checking his phone, probably texting the sharks that the money was coming. "Wait, Darnell," I said. He stopped. "Those men," I said, pointing to his phone, "the ones with the gun. Invite them too." "What?" He turned pale again. "Why?" "They are your business partners now, aren't they?" I asked, my voice innocent. "If they are going to hold the mortgage, they should see the property. They should see that the new owner is a man of substance. Show them you are not hiding, Darnell. Show them you are in charge." Darnell thought about it. He nodded slowly. "You are right," he said. "If they see the transfer happen, if they see me sign, they will back off. They will know I am good for it." "Exactly," I said. "Bring them all. Let us have a full house." "I will, Dad. You are smarter than you look." He turned and ran back toward the house. He ran like a man who had just won the lottery. I watched him go. I picked up my pitchfork. I stabbed it into a bale of hay. The trap was set. The bait was taken. He thought he was inviting his friends to a coronation. He did not know he was inviting witnesses to his execution. I walked back into the barn. It was cool and dark. I took out my phone. I called Ms. Patel. "It is on," I said. "Noon tomorrow. He is inviting everyone." "Is he bringing the lenders?" she asked. "He thinks they are investors," I said. "Yes, they will be there." "Good," she said. "I have the association on standby. We have the private security team ready. And Hiram." I spoke to the sheriff. The sheriff I asked. I sent him the recordings, she said. The ones of the attempted murder, the ones of the fraud. He is very interested. He will be close by. Do not let him come in until I say so, I said. "I want to say my piece first." "It is your show, Hiram," she said. "Break a leg." I hung up. I stood in the center of the empty barn. Shafts of sunlight pierced through the gaps in the wood, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. This was it, the end of the line. Tomorrow I would lose my son forever, but I would save his soul from the sin of patricide, and I would save this land from the greed of fools. I walked out into the sunlight. I went to the house. I walked into the kitchen. Kylie was there. She looked up from her phone. She looked suspicious but excited. "Darnell says you agreed," she said. I nodded. I poured myself a glass of water. "It is time, Kylie," I said. "You were right. I am tired. I want to rest." She smiled. It was a predatory smile. "I am glad you finally saw reason." "Hiram," she said, "we will make it a beautiful party, a celebration of new beginnings." "Yes," I said, drinking the water, "new beginnings. For me, and for the land." "But for you, Kylie," I thought, looking at her over the rim of the glass. "For you, it is the beginning of the end." Wednesday morning arrived with the chaos of a circus coming to town. By 8 in the morning, Freedom Hill was swarming with activity, but none of it had anything to do with raising cattle or tending the land. Kylie had hired a fleet of event planners, caterers, and decorators who were busy transforming my front lawn into something that looked like a page out of a glossy magazine. White tents were going up, obscuring the view of the valley. A stage was being built near the porch. Large floral arrangements that cost more than a month of feed were being placed on every flat surface. I watched it all from the window of my study. It was grotesque. It was a funeral for my life disguised as a party for my son. Darnell was running around like a headless chicken. He was on his phone, constantly pacing back and forth, wiping sweat from his forehead. I knew who he was talking to. The lenders, the sharks. He was telling them it was happening. He was telling them the payday was here. Kylie was in her element. She was shouting orders at a poor girl carrying a tray of champagne flutes. "No, not there," she yelled. "Put them by the entrance. We need a wow factor when the guests arrive." I turned away from the window. I had my own wow factor planned. I checked my watch. It was 9:30. I walked out of the study and into the kitchen. Kylie ignored me. She was too busy tasting canapes. "I'm going for a walk," I announced, loudly enough to be heard but quiet enough to sound defeated. "I want to say goodbye to the old tractor shed before the party." Kylie glanced at me. "Just don't get dirty," she snapped, "and be back by 11:30 to get changed. We need you presentable for the signing." "I will be clean," I said. I walked out the back door. I walked past the bustle of the caterers and the noise of the tent crews. I walked toward the old tractor shed on the south side of the property. It was a small building made of corrugated tin and weathered wood. It was where I kept the old Massey Ferguson tractor that my father had bought in 1960. It was where I kept my tools, my oil cans, and the memories of 1,000 repairs made with bloody knuckles and stubborn pride. Kylie wanted to tear this shed down. She said it was ugly. She said it ruined the aesthetic. I opened the creaking door and stepped into the cool, dim interior. The smell hit me instantly. Old grease, diesel fuel, dry earth. It was the perfume of my life. In the back of the shed in the shadows, 2 figures were waiting. One was Ms. Patel. She looked out of place in her sharp business suit standing next to a stack of hay bales, but her face was fierce and ready. The other was a man I had never met, but I recognized him instantly. He was tall and broad-shouldered with skin the color of polished obsidian. He wore a simple button-down shirt and work boots that had seen real mud. He held a hat in his hands. "Hiram," Ms. Patel said, stepping forward. "This is Marcus Freeman. He is the director of the National Black Farmers Association." Mr. Freeman stepped forward and extended a hand. It was a hand like mine, roughly textured, calloused, a working man's hand. "Mr. Douglas," he said. His voice was deep and resonant like a church bell. "It is an honor, truly an honor. I have heard about Freedom Hill since I was a boy." I shook his hand. It was a firm grip. Honest. "Mr. Freeman," I said, "I hope you are ready to take on a lot of work. This land is demanding. She gives, but she takes too." "We are ready," he said, solemn and serious. "We have 20 young families waiting for a chance to work soil like this. We will turn this place into a sanctuary. We will teach sustainable agriculture. We will keep the history alive. We will not let it become a golf course." I nodded. I felt a tightness in my throat release. This was right. This was the only way. "Do you have the papers?" I asked. Ms. Patel opened her briefcase on the seat of the old tractor. It was a strange desk for a multi-million-dollar transaction, but it was fitting. "Here," she said. "The deed transfer, the bill of sale, and the trust documents." I looked at the papers. They were thick and heavy. Legal language dense as a thicket. "The price is $5.5 million, Mr. Freeman said. As agreed, the funds have been wired to the escrow account Ms. Patel set up, and the trust I asked, looking at Ms. Patel. "It is done," she said. "The money goes directly into a blind trust in Switzerland. The account is numbered and untraceable. You are the sole beneficiary. Darnell cannot touch it. Kylie cannot touch it. The creditors cannot touch it. It is a fortress, Hiram." "Good," I said. I took the pen. I leaned over the tractor seat. My hand hovered over the signature line. For a second, I hesitated. I thought about my father. I thought about the day he signed the papers to buy the first 10 acres. He had cried. He had fallen to his knees and kissed the dirt. I was not crying. I was angry. But under the anger there was peace. I was not selling out. I was saving it. I was putting the land into hands that would love it, not exploit it. I signed my name, Hiram Washington Douglas. I signed the deed. I signed the transfer. I signed the death warrant for my son's greed. Miss Patel witnessed the signatures. She stamped them with her notary seal. Thump, thump, thump. "It is done," she said. "Freedom Hill belongs to the association." Mr. Freeman looked at me. "You have lifetime rights to the caretaker's cottage," he said. "It is in the contract. You never have to leave." I shook my head. "No," I said. "I cannot stay here. Not with the ghosts of what happened. Not with the memory of my son's betrayal. I need to go. I need to see the world Etta and I talked about." Mr. Freeman nodded. "I understand." Now I said, straightening up, "The condition." "We are ready," Mr. Freeman said. "We have 4 trucks parked on the county road a mile out. My team is with me. We have the paperwork. We have the security team." "Noon," I said. "Not a minute before. Not a minute after. We will be there," Ms. Patel promised. "When Darnell asks you to sign his power of attorney, that is the signal." "We will come through the main gate," Mr. Freeman said. "We will make an entrance." "Good," I said. "Make it loud. Make it undeniable. I want them to feel the earth shake." They packed up the papers. Ms. Patel squeezed my arm. "You are a brave man, Hiram," she whispered. "I am just a man cleaning up his mess," I said. They slipped out the back door of the shed, disappearing into the tall grass of the pasture. They would circle back to the road and wait. I was alone in the shed. I walked over to the wall. It was made of rough planks, pine and cedar. I ran my hand over the wood. I felt the grain. I felt the knots. I remembered the day Etta and I built this shed. She held the nails. I swung the hammer. We were young then. We were tired, but we were building something. I rested my forehead against the cool wood. I closed my eyes. "Goodbye, Etta," I whispered into the silence. "I am sorry it ended this way. I am sorry our boy got lost. But I saved the dirt, Etta. I saved the hill. They won't pave it. They won't put up condos. It will grow corn and beans and collard greens. It will feed people. It will teach children." I felt a tear slide down my nose. I let it fall. It landed in the dust on the floor. One last drop of water for the land. "We did it, old girl," I said. We finished the work. I pushed myself away from the wall. I wiped my face with my handkerchief. I adjusted my vest. It was time to go back. It was time to put on the costume. I walked out of the shed and closed the door. I latched it. I walked back toward the house. The noise of the party preparation grew louder as I got closer. I could hear music now, a tasteful jazz playlist Kylie had selected. I could smell the roasting meat from the high-end catering truck. I saw Darnell standing on the porch. He was wearing a new suit. It was light gray and it looked expensive. He was talking to a group of men who had just arrived. I recognized the look of them instantly. They were not investors. They were not bankers. They wore suits that were too tight. They wore sunglasses even though they were in the shade. They stood with a kind of aggressive posture like coiled snakes, the lone sharks. Darnell had actually done it. He had invited the wolves to the sheep pen. He saw me approaching. He waved. It was a frantic, jerky wave. "Dad, come here," he called out. "I want you to meet some people." I walked up the steps. I made my legs heavy. I made my eyes vague. "Who are these nice men?" I asked, my voice trembling just enough. "These are my partners," Darnell said. "This is Mr. Vance and Mr. Stone. They are very interested in the future of the ranch." Mr. Vance was a short man with a neck as thick as a tree stump. He looked at me with dead eyes. "Nice place you got here, Pop," he said. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. "Be a shame if anything happened to it." "It is a lovely place," I said, smiling my foolish smile. "My son is going to take good care of it. He is a good boy." Vance looked at Darnell. He smiled. It was a smile full of teeth. "We are counting on that," he said. "Noon, right?" "Noon," Darnell said, sweating. "Absolutely. The lawyer is on his way." I walked past them. I went into the house. Kylie was in the foyer directing the placement of a massive flower arrangement. "You are late," she snapped. "Go get changed. The lawyer will be here in 20 minutes. I looked at her. She was beautiful in her cold, sharp way. She was dressed in red, the color of victory. Or blood. "I am going," I said. I went to my bedroom. I took off my work clothes. I put on my best suit. It was a dark blue wool suit I had bought for Etta's funeral. It was old-fashioned, but it was dignified. I tied my tie. I brushed my hair. I looked in the mirror. I did not see a senile old fool. I saw the man who had built this ranch. I saw the man who had survived storms and droughts. I saw the man who was about to bring the sky down. I checked my pocket. The phone was there. The recording app was ready. I checked my other pocket. I had a small velvet bag. Inside was the key to the tractor shed. I would give it to Mr. Freeman. It was the only key that mattered. I walked out of the bedroom. I walked down the hall. I could hear the guests arriving, the chatter of voices, the clinking of glasses. It was time. The stage was set. The actors were in place. I walked out onto the porch and into the blinding Texas sun. It was a beautiful day for a revolution. The noon sun hung directly overhead like a spotlight trained on a crime scene. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of expensive perfume that tried and failed to mask the scent of the earth. I sat in a padded chair on the edge of the stage they had built over Etta's rose garden. From my vantage point, I could see everything. It was a spectacle of greed. Kylie had outdone herself. There were white tents rippling in the breeze and waiters circulating with trays of champagne. A jazz band played soft, inoffensive music in the corner, drowning out the natural sounds of the ranch. The guests were a mix of people I did not know and people I wished I did not know. There were Kylie's friends, women in sundresses and big hats who looked at the barn with wrinkled noses as if they smelled something rotting. They chattered about property values and potential. They pointed at the rolling hills and talked about where the fairways would go. They did not see the land. They saw a canvas for their vanity. Then there were the others. Mr. Vance and Mr. Stone stood near the bar. They did not mingle, they did not smile. They wore suits that strained against their bulk and sunglasses that hid their eyes. They held their drinks like weapons. They were not here for the canapes. They were here for the closing. Every time Darnell walked past them, I saw him flinch. I saw the sweat trickling down his neck. He was a man walking a tightrope over a pit of vipers. I sat still. My hands rested on my knees. I wore my best suit, the dark blue wool that scratched a little in the heat. I let my mouth hang slightly open. I let my eyes wander vacantly over the crowd. To them, I was just a prop. I was the old king waiting to be dethroned. I was the senile fool who was about to sign away his kingdom for a pudding cup and a nap. Kylie swept through the crowd like a queen. She was wearing a dress the color of fresh arterial blood. It was tight and cut low, and she moved with the confidence of a woman who has already won the war. She stopped at every group, laughing too loudly, touching arms, pointing at me with a look of benevolent pity. "Oh yes, we are so relieved," she told a group of investors. "It has been so hard watching him decline. But Serenity Gardens is the best facility in the state. He will be safe there, and we can finally unlock the true value of this place." Unlock the true value. As if 40 years of feeding families and stewarding the land had no value. As if the only thing that mattered was how much concrete you could pour over the grass. She walked up the steps to the stage. Her heels clicked on the temporary wood floor. She tapped a spoon against her champagne flute. Ding, ding, ding. The sound cut through the chatter. The music stopped. The guests turned their faces toward the stage. Darnell scrambled up the steps to stand beside her. He looked like he was about to vomit. He kept glancing at Vance, who was watching him with the patience of a reptile. "Welcome, everyone," Kylie announced, her voice amplified by a microphone. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Today is a very special day for the Douglas family. It is a day of transition, a day of new beginnings." She put a hand on Darnell's shoulder. He tried to smile, but it looked more like a grimace of pain. "For 3 generations, this land has been a working ranch," she continued. "And that is a beautiful history. But the world changes, progress marches on, and sometimes we have to let go of the old to embrace the new." She turned and gestured to me. "My father-in-law Hiram has been the caretaker of this legacy for a long time. But as many of you know, his health has been declining. It has been heartbreaking to watch such a strong man lose his way, to see him confused and overwhelmed by the burden of this property." I blinked slowly. I looked at my hands. I played the part. Inside my chest, my heart was beating, a slow, steady rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. It was the drumbeat of justice. "So today," Kylie said, raising her glass, "we are here to lift that burden. We are here to ensure his safety and comfort in his golden years. And we are here to announce the future of Freedom Hill." She paused for dramatic effect. She looked out over the crowd. She looked at the architects. She looked at the loan sharks. "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the future Freedom Hill Resort and Spa, a luxury destination that will bring jobs and prestige to this community. Goodbye to the dusty old past. Hello to a shining, profitable future." The crowd applauded. It was a polite, enthusiastic applause. They clapped for the destruction of my life. They clapped for the erasure of my history. Vance did not clap. He just took a sip of his drink and nodded at Darnell. The message was clear. Get it done. Kylie beamed. She handed her glass to a waiter. She motioned to a man standing at the side of the stage. It was not Miss Patel. It was a stranger in a gray suit holding a leather portfolio. Darnell's lawyer. Or maybe the Shark's lawyer. It did not matter. "Okay, let us make it official," she said. They set up a small table in the center of the stage. They placed a chair there. The lawyer laid out a document. It was thick. It was bound in blue paper. The power of attorney. The keys to the kingdom. Darnell walked over to me. He was sweating profusely now. His face was slick with it. He reached out and took my arm. "Come on, Dad," he said, his voice shaking. "It is time." I let him pull me up. I leaned heavily on him. I shuffled my feet. We walked to the table. I sat down. The chair was hard. The sun was hot on my neck. The document lay open in front of me. I saw the words printed in bold black ink. Full and durable power of attorney, transfer of assets, guardianship. It was a death sentence. Not for my body, but for my rights. If I signed this, I ceased to be a man. I became a ward, a child, a piece of property to be managed. Darnell reached into his pocket. He pulled out a pen. It was a gold pen. It caught the sunlight and flashed. It looked expensive. It looked like the kind of pen a man buys when he thinks he is rich but is actually drowning. "Here, Dad," he said. He handed me the pen. His hand was trembling so bad he almost dropped it. "Just sign right there," he whispered, pointing to the line at the bottom of the page. "Right by the X." I took the pen. It felt heavy, cold. I looked at the paper. I looked at Darnell. "Why are there so many people, son?" I asked, my voice quavering. "They are just here to celebrate, Dad," Darnell said. "They want to wish you well." I looked past him at Vance. The shark had moved closer to the stage. He was standing right at the bottom of the steps. He took off his sunglasses. His eyes were flat and dead. He tapped his watch. Time was up. "Sign it, Dad." Darnell urged, his voice pitching higher. "Please, just sign it. Then we can go. We can take you to the new place, Serenity Gardens. It is beautiful, Dad. You will have your own room. They have a garden. You can rest. You won't have to worry about the cows or the fences or the bills. I will take care of everything." I looked at Kylie. She was standing over me like a vulture waiting for the animal to stop kicking. Her eyes were hungry. She was already spending the money in her head. She was already remodeling the kitchen. She was already laughing at my funeral. "Do not be difficult, Hiram," she hissed under her breath. "Just write your name. Do not embarrass us." I looked out at the crowd. They were watching, waiting. The silence stretched out. The wind rustled the tablecloths. I held the pen over the paper. I thought about the night Richard died. I thought about the money Darnell stole. I thought about the poison in the tea. I thought about the cliff. They wanted this so bad. They wanted it more than air. They had killed for it. They had sold their souls for it. And now it was right there, one signature away. I let my hand shake. I let the pen hover over the line. I made them wait. I made them sweat. Darnell leaned in. He smelled of fear and cheap brandy. "Dad, please," he whispered. "Do it for me. For you." I looked him in the eye. He saw something there. He saw a flicker of the man who had raised him. He saw the father who had taught him right from wrong. And for a second he looked ashamed. But then he looked at Vance, and the shame turned back into terror. "Sign it," he begged. I gripped the pen tighter. My hand stopped shaking. I sat up a little straighter. I looked at the document one last time. Then I looked at the microphone standing on the podium next to the table. I stood up. "Sit down," Hiram Kiley snapped. "You are not done." I ignored her. I walked to the podium. I took the microphone in my hand. The feedback squealed for a second. The crowd jumped. Darnell froze. Kylie took a step toward me, her hands reaching out to grab the mic. But I was faster, and I was not frail. I turned to face the crowd. I looked at the bankers and the socialites and the sharks. I looked at my neighbors who had come to see the spectacle. I looked at my son and his wife. I raised the gold pen in the air like a trophy. "You want me to sign this?" I asked. My voice was not raspy anymore. It was deep. It was strong. It was the voice of a man who could call cattle from across a canyon. "You want me to give you Freedom Hill?" The crowd murmured. Kylie stopped in her tracks. Her eyes went wide. She realized in that second that the script had changed. "Well," I said, "I have some bad news for you, Darnell. And for you, Kylie. And especially for you, Mr. Vance." I pointed the pen at the loan shark. He stiffened. His hand went to his jacket pocket. "You can't have it," I said. "Why?" Darnell whispered. "Dad, what are you doing?" Because I said, my voice booming over the speakers, rolling like thunder across the valley. Because you cannot give away what you do not own. I dropped the pen. It hit the stage with a clatter, and then I smiled. It was not the smile of a fool. It was the smile of the tiger who has just closed the cage door from the inside. I nodded toward the main gate. Right on time. The sound of heavy engines roared to life in the distance. Dust rose in the air, and the real party began. You cannot give away what you do not own. The words hung in the humid air like smoke. Darnell laughed. It was a nervous, high-pitched sound. "What are you talking about, Dad?" he stuttered. "Of course you own it. It is Freedom Hill. It has been yours for 40 years. Stop joking. Sign the paper." I looked at him with pity, real deep pity, not for the man he was, but for the boy he used to be. "I do not own it, son," I said into the microphone. "Not anymore. I sold it." "You sold it," Kylie shrieked. She stepped forward, her face twisting. "You are lying. You have been here all week. You are senile. You do not even know what day it is." "I know exactly what day it is, Kylie," I said, my voice calm. "It is Wednesday. It is the day you thought you won, but it is actually the day you lost everything." I pointed toward the horizon. "Look," I said. Everyone turned. The guests, the sharks, my son. At the end of the long driveway, the wrought iron gates of Freedom Hill began to swing open. They did not open for a delivery truck. They did not open for a limousine. They opened for an army. A low rumble shook the ground. It was the sound of heavy-duty diesel engines. First one black pickup truck appeared, then another, then a third. They came in a line moving slow and steady like a funeral procession or a military convoy. They were not shiny show trucks like Darnell wanted. They were working trucks. Ford F-350s, Rams, Chevys, trucks with mud tires and grill guards, trucks that knew what work was. They rolled up the driveway, kicking up dust that coated the white tablecloths and the expensive flower arrangements. The jazz band stopped playing. The silence was absolute except for the growl of the engines. The trucks pulled up in a semicircle around the stage, blocking the exit, blocking the view, taking over the space. Doors opened. Men and women stepped out. They were not wearing tuxedos or cocktail dresses. They were wearing boots, jeans, button-down shirts, hats that had seen rain and sun. They were black farmers. There were 20 of them, maybe 30. They stood by their trucks, silent and unmoving. They looked at the party guests with eyes that had seen more hardship in a week than these socialites had seen in a lifetime. And then Mr. Freeman stepped out of the lead truck. He looked like a mountain. He walked toward the stage, his boots crunching on the gravel. "Who are these people?" Kylie screamed. "Get them out of here. This is private property." "You are right, Kylie," Mr. Freeman said, his voice deep and booming without a microphone. "It is private property." He walked up the steps of the stage. He stood next to me. He put a hand on my shoulder. "But it is not yours," he said. "It is ours." Darnell looked at me. He looked at Freeman. He looked like his brain was short-circuiting. "Dad," he whispered, "what did you do?" "I did what I had to do," I said. Then Ms. Patel stepped out of the second truck. She walked up the stairs carrying her briefcase. She did not look at Darnell. She did not look at Kylie. She looked at the crowd. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a document. It had a gold seal on it. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. "I am Priya Patel, attorney at law. I am here to represent the National Black Farmers Association." She held up the document. "This is the deed to Freedom Hill," she said. "It was signed, notarized, and filed with the county clerk this morning at 9 a.m. The transfer of ownership is complete. Mr. Hiram Douglas has sold the entire property to the association for the sum of $5.5 million. The gasp from the crowd sucked the oxygen out of the tent. 5.5 million. The number hung in the air. Kylie dropped her champagne glass. It hit the wooden floor of the stage and shattered. Crystal shards flew everywhere, sparkling in the sun. Champagne soaked the hem of her red dress, turning it a dark, muddy color. She did not move. She stared at the deed in Ms. Patel's hand. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Darnell fell to his knees. It was not a dramatic fall. His legs just gave out. He collapsed onto the stage right next to the pen he had tried to force me to use. "No," he moaned. No. You could not. You promised. "I promised I would sign," I said, looking down at him. "I never said I would sign your paper, Vance and Stone." The loan sharks stepped forward. They pushed through the crowd of stunned guests. They walked right up to the edge of the stage. Vance took off his sunglasses. His eyes were cold and dead. He looked at Darnell. "You said you were the heir," Vance said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "You said the land was the collateral." "I am," Darnell babbled, scrambling backward on his hands and knees. "I am the heir. He is my dad. He cannot sell it. He is crazy. He is senile. Tell them, Kylie. Tell them he is crazy." Kylie woke up from her trance. "Yes," she screamed. She pointed a shaking finger at me. "He is incompetent. He has dementia. That sale is void. He does not know what he is doing. We have a doctor. We have proof." Ms. Patel stepped forward. She pulled another document from her briefcase. "Actually," she said, "we anticipated you might say that." She held up a thick file. "This is a comprehensive medical evaluation conducted yesterday afternoon by 3 independent board-certified psychiatrists and a neurologist. It certifies that Mr. Hiram Douglas is of sound mind, excellent memory, and fully capable of making his own legal and financial decisions. She dropped the file on the table next to the unsigned power of attorney. Thud. It also includes a toxicology report, she added, looking at Kylie, which shows no trace of the sedatives you tried to administer. However, we might want to ask your husband why his blood work showed dangerous levels of haloperidol yesterday. Kylie turned white. She looked like a ghost in a red dress. You knew, she whispered. I leaned into the microphone. I knew everything I said. I knew about the theft. I knew about the lies. I knew about the cliff. And I knew about the tea. The crowd began to murmur. People were pulling out their phones recording. This was not just a scene, it was a scandal. But the Sharks did not care about scandals. They cared about money. Vance looked at me. If you sold it, Pop, he said, where is the money? Darnell looked up. Hope flared in his eyes. A desperate, pathetic hope. Yes, Dad, he said. The money. 5 million. You have the money. You can pay them. You can save me. Please, Dad, pay them and we are square. I will never ask for anything again. I looked at my son. He still did not get it. He still thought I was his safety net. He still thought his sins could be bought off. I do have the money, I said. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a receipt. Just a small slip of paper. $5.5 million. Give it to him, Vance said. Pay the dead old man, and we walk away. I looked at Vance. Then I looked at Darnell. That is a lot of money, I said. It could do a lot of good. Yes, Dad, Darnell cried. It can save my life. It could, I agreed, but I decided to put it somewhere safer. I handed the receipt to Ms. Patel. She read it out loud. Transfer of funds confirmed, she read. $2.75 million has been donated to the Etta Douglas Scholarship Fund for Agricultural Science. Donated. Darnell screamed. You gave away $3 million. Half of it, I said. Etta always said we should give back. What about the rest? Vance growled. He was getting impatient. He put his hand inside his jacket. I saw the bulge of a weapon. The security team saw it too. 4 large men from Mr. Freeman's group stepped forward. They crossed their arms. They did not have guns visible, but they looked like they could stop a truck with their bare hands. The rest, I said, looking Vance in the eye, is in an irrevocable blind trust in the Cook Islands. I patted my chest pocket. I cannot touch it. You cannot touch it, and Darnell definitely cannot touch it. It pays me a modest living allowance, just enough for a senile old fool to travel and see the world. You moved the money offshore, Vance asked. This morning, I said. It is gone. Darnell let out a sound that was not human. It was the sound of a wounded animal realizing the trap has shut. You killed me, he wailed. You killed me. I did not kill you, son, I said. I just refused to let you kill me. Vance looked at Darnell. He looked at the ranch that was no longer collateral. He looked at the money that was gone. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. He dialed a number. Bring the car around, he said into the phone. We have a problem. The guests started to panic. They sensed the violence in the air. The polite facade of the party shattered. People started running for their cars. Waiters dropped trays and fled. Mr. Freeman stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he boomed. This is now the property of the National Black Farmers Association. You are trespassing. You have 5 minutes to clear the premises before we lock the gates. The stampede began. Kylie stood in the middle of it all, the red dress stained. The champagne glass shattered, the dream destroyed. She looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. I hate you, she screamed. I hate you. You ruined everything. I ruined your plan, I said. There is a difference. I turned to Darnell. He was still on his knees. He was weeping. Dad, please, he sobbed. Do not let them take me. They will kill me, Dad. They will kill me. I looked at him. I felt a pang in my heart, a deep, sharp pain. He was my blood. But blood is not a contract for suicide. You made a deal, Darnell, I said softly. You borrowed money you could not pay. You promised land you did not own. You tried to murder your father to cover your bet. I leaned down. I whispered so only he could hear. This is the real world, son. In the real world, when you dance with the devil, you have to pay the band. I stood up. I turned my back on him. I walked over to Mr. Freeman. It is yours now, I said. Take care of it. We will hire him, he said. Go. Get out of here. It is about to get ugly. Ms. Patel guided me toward one of the association trucks. Come on, Hiram, she said. We have a plane to catch. I did not look back. I heard Darnell screaming my name. Dad, help me. I heard the sound of Vance's voice, calm and terrifying. Get him in the car, boys. We need to have a conversation. I heard Kylie shrieking as she realized her ride was leaving without her. I got into the truck. The door closed with a solid thud. The air conditioning was cool. The seats were leather. Drive, Ms. Patel said to the driver. The truck started to move. We drove past the tents. We drove past the rose garden. We drove past the oak tree where Etta was buried. I touched the glass of the window. Goodbye, Etta, I thought. I kept the weeds out. We drove through the main gate. As we turned onto the county road, I saw a black sedan speeding the other way. It was Vance's car. Darnell was in the back seat, sandwiched between two large men. He looked out the window. Our eyes met for a split second. He looked terrified. He looked like a child who wanted his father to fix it. But I was not his father anymore. I was just a witness. The truck accelerated. The ranch disappeared in the rearview mirror. I sat back in the seat. I took a deep breath. My chest hurt. My heart was breaking. But for the first time in 25 years, I could breathe. The weight was gone. The lie was over. I was alone. I was old. I was homeless. And I was free. Are you okay? Hiram, Ms. Patel asked gently. I looked at her. I touched the pocket where my passport was waiting. I am fine, I said. Where are we going first? She asked. The airport, I said. And then I looked at the road ahead. It was long and empty and full of possibility. Paris, I said. Etta always wanted to see Paris. I closed my eyes. I was not a rancher anymore. I was a traveler. And I had a lot of catching up to do. The engine hummed. The tires sang on the asphalt. Behind me, the dust settled on Freedom Hill. Ahead of me, the world was waiting, and the senile old fool was ready to live. You tricked me. The scream tore through my throat, raw and jagged. It was not a human sound. It was the shriek of a demon being exorcised. Kylie lunged at me. She scrambled up the last step of the stage, her heels catching on the wood, her red dress tearing at the seam. She did not look like a socialite anymore. She looked like a feral cat backed into a corner. She grabbed the lapels of my wool suit. Her knuckles were white. Her nails dug into the fabric near my neck. She shook me. Or she tried to. I was a rock. She was water crashing against me, useless and hysterical. You tricked me, she screamed again, spraying spittle on my face. You sat there eating my food, drinking my tea, pretending to be a vegetable. You lied. I did not lie, Kylie, I said calmly. I removed her hands from my jacket one by one. Her grip was strong with desperation, but mine was strong with a lifetime of hauling hay bales. I peeled her fingers off like they were dead vines. I never said I was senile, I said. You said that. I never said I would give you the ranch. You assumed that. The only thing I did was let you believe your own lies because it was easier than facing the truth. She stumbled back, panting. Her eyes darted around the stage, searching for something, anything, to salvage the wreckage of her plans. The money, she gasped. Her eyes locked onto me with a terrifying intensity. It was the look of an addict who needs a fix. You sold it. You said you sold it. $5 million. Where is it? Give it to me. She held out her hand, palm up, demanding. Give it to me, Hiram. It is family money. It belongs to the estate. You cannot just take it. Darnell needs it. We need it. Give me the check. I looked at her hand. It was shaking. I looked at Darnell, who was still on his knees, weeping softly into the wood of the stage floor. I looked at Vance, the loan shark, who was watching us with the impassive stare of a butcher waiting to select a cut of meat. I smiled. It was a small, sad smile. There is no check, Kylie, I said. What do you mean there is no check? She shrieked. You sold it. You just said you sold it. I did sell it, I said. I reached up and patted the breast pocket of my jacket. I could feel the outline of my passport and the receipt from the bank transfer. $5.5 million, I said. My voice was steady and loud enough for every person in that tent to hear. $5.5 million for 500 acres of blood and sweat. The crowd leaned in. Even the wind seemed to stop to listen. $2.5 million has already been wired to the Etta Douglas Scholarship Fund, I said. It will pay for the education of young black farmers for the next 50 years. It will build greenhouses. It will buy tractors. It will plant seeds in soil that you wanted to cover with concrete. Darnell let out a moan of physical pain. $2 million, he whispered. Mom's money. You gave away Mom's money. I gave away my money, I corrected him. Etta would have wanted it this way. She never cared for gold, Darnell. She cared for growth. But that leaves 3 million, Kylie calculated instantly. Her mind was a calculator that never stopped running even in the middle of a disaster. $3 million. That is enough. That covers the debt. That saves us. Give us the 3 million, Hiram. Give it to us and we will never bother you again. I swear we will put you in the best home. Or you can travel. Whatever you want, just give us the cash. I shook my head slowly. The remaining 3 million, I said, tapping my chest pocket again, is right here. Her eyes widened. She took a step toward me, thinking I had a check in my pocket. But it is not in a form you can touch, I said, stopping her with a look. It is in an irrevocable blind trust. It is sitting in a numbered account in a bank in Switzerland that does not answer subpoenas and does not care about your tears. I leaned in close to her. I wanted her to smell the old spice and the dust on my suit. I wanted her to know that the old man she despised had outmaneuvered her completely. It is in a place where you will never touch it, I whispered. Not now. Not when I die. Never. The trust pays out a monthly stipend to me and only me. If I die, the remainder goes to the charity. There is no inheritance, Kylie. There is no pot of gold at the end of my rainbow for you. The well is dry. She stared at me. Her mouth opened and closed. You cut us off, she whispered. You really cut us off. I did not cut you off, I said. I set you free. You are free to work. You are free to struggle. You are free to earn your own way, just like I did. She screamed. It was a long, wordless scream of pure frustration. She raised her hands to claw at my face, to hurt me, to punish me for her failure. But before she could touch me, a heavy hand landed on her shoulder. It was Mr. Freeman. That is enough, he said. His voice was like a rumble of thunder. He spun her around. He did not hurt her, but he moved her with the unstoppable force of a man who moves boulders for a living. You are done here, he said. Kylie struggled against his grip. Let me go. This is my house. This is my wedding reception. I planned this. Mr. Freeman looked at her with eyes that had seen too much hardship to be impressed by a temper tantrum. This is not your house, he said. This is the property of the National Black Farmers Association, and you are trespassing. He looked at Darnell, who was still huddled on the floor. He looked at the loan sharks who were stepping closer, their hands twitching near their waistbands. And he looked at the guests who were frozen in a circle of shock. Listen to me, Mr. Freeman boomed. This party is over. The sale is final. The ownership has transferred. He checked his watch. A battered Timex. It is 12:15, he said. You have exactly 5 minutes to vacate these premises, all of you. He pointed at the caterers. Pack up your trucks and go. He pointed at the guests. Get in your cars and leave. He pointed at Vance and Stone. Take your business elsewhere, gentlemen. There is nothing for you here. Vance did not move. He looked at me. He looked at the $3 million that was in my pocket, but out of his reach. Then he looked at Darnell. The money is gone, Vance said. His voice was flat, no emotion, just business. Darnell looked up. His face was wet with tears and snot. Please, Mr. Vance, he begged. Give me time. I can fix this. Time is money, kid, Vance said. And you are out of both. Vance turned to his partner, Stone. Grab him, he said. Stone moved fast for a big man. He grabbed Darnell by the collar of his expensive suit and hauled him to his feet like a sack of feed. No, Darnell screamed, kicking his legs. No, Dad, help me. Do not let them take me. I stood on the stage and watched. I watched the son I had prayed for, the son I had loved, the son I had protected for 32 years being dragged away by the consequences of his own actions. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to intervene, to pull out the checkbook, to beg, to fight. But I stayed still. I remembered the signature on the consent form. I remembered the poison in the tea. I remembered the cliff. He had made his choice. He had chosen the easy money over the hard truth. And now the bill was due. I love you, son, I whispered, but I cannot save you from yourself. Stone dragged Darnell down the steps of the stage. Darnell's heels dug into the grass, leaving 2 long furrows in the earth. Kylie watched him go. She did not try to help him. She did not scream for the police. She looked at Darnell being dragged away, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. She was already distancing herself. She was already figuring out how to frame herself as the victim. She turned back to me. "You are evil," she spat. "You are a sick, evil old man. You let them take your own son." I looked at her. "I did not let them take him," I said. "I just stopped standing in their way." Mr. Freeman stepped between us. "Time is ticking, Kylie," he said. "You have 3 minutes left. If you are still on this land at 12:20, I will have my security team remove you physically, and they will not be as gentle as I am." He gestured to the 4 large men standing by the trucks. They stepped forward, crossing their arms. They looked like a wall of granite. Kylie looked at them. She looked at the guests fleeing toward their cars. She looked at the ruins of her party. She realized she had no allies left. She snatched up her purse from the table. She grabbed a bottle of champagne by the neck. "Fine," she screamed. "Keep your dirt. Keep your cows." I hate this place anyway. I always hated it. It smells like manure and failure. She turned and ran. She ran down the steps, her red dress flapping around her legs. She ran past the rose garden she wanted to pave. She ran past the oak tree she wanted to cut down. She ran toward the driveway where her car was parked, but as she reached into her purse for her keys, she stopped. She froze. She dumped the contents of her purse onto the gravel. Lipstick, phone, wallet, no keys. She looked up at the stage. She looked at me. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a set of keys. Not the keys to my truck. The keys to Darnell's luxury SUV. The one she drove. The one I paid the insurance on. I held them up. They jingled in the silence. "Looking for these?" I asked. She stared at me. "I took them this morning," I said, "when you were busy stealing my silver." "I thought it was unsafe for you to drive. You seemed very stressed." "You steal my car," she shrieked. "It is in Darnell's name," I said. "And Darnell is indisposed. And since the payments came out of my account, I figure I have a right to hold on to them for safekeeping." I tossed the keys to Mr. Freeman. "Put these in the safe," I said. "We can give them to the repo man when he comes next week." Mr. Freeman caught the keys with one hand. "Will do, Hiram," he said. Kylie let out a sound of pure rage. She threw the champagne bottle at me. It fell short, landing in the grass with a dull thud. She turned and started walking. She had to walk down the long driveway. She had to walk past the guests who were speeding away in their cars trying to avoid eye contact. She had to walk in her high heels on the gravel. She was walking into a world where she had no home, no money, no husband, and no victim to exploit. I watched her go. I watched until she was just a red speck in the distance. Then I sat down on the chair. My legs felt weak. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. It was over. The ranch was sold. The money was safe. The enemies were gone. Mr. Freeman walked over to me. He put a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay, Mr. Douglas?" he asked. I looked out at the valley. The heat waves were shimmering off the ground. A hawk was circling high above, looking for a field mouse. The cycle of life continued. "I am tired, Mr. Freeman," I said. "I am very tired." "Take a minute," he said. "The truck is ready when you are." I nodded. I looked at the stage, at the spilled champagne, at the empty chairs. It was a mess, but it was a beautiful mess. It was the wreckage of a prison break. I stood up. I straightened my tie. "Let us go," I said. "I have a plane to catch." And I walked down the steps, leaving the debris of my past behind me forever. The dust from the departing guests hung in the hot air like a dirty fog. I stood at the edge of the property line, just inside the heavy iron gates of Freedom Hill. Next to me stood Mr. Freeman like a granite statue, and behind us was the wall of security men provided by the association. We were untouchable. We were on sovereign ground. But Darnell and Kylie were not. They had reached the county road. Darnell was stumbling, his expensive Italian loafers slipping on the loose gravel. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. His shoulders were slumped, his head hung low. Kylie trailed behind him, hobbling on broken heels, clutching her purse like it contained the last scraps of her dignity. They thought they were just walking away. They thought they would call an Uber, go to a hotel, and start plotting their next move. They thought the worst was over. They were wrong. A black sedan was waiting on the shoulder of the road. It was the same car I had seen Vance and Stone arrive in, but now it looked different. It looked like a hearse. Vance was leaning against the hood, smoking a cigarette. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man who had all the time in the world because he knew his prey had nowhere to run. Stone stood by the open rear door, his massive arms crossed over his chest. Darnell stopped when he saw them. He froze like a rabbit caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. He tried to back up, but there was nowhere to go. Behind him was the gate he had been exiled from. In front of him were the men who owned his debt. I saw the exchange clearly. The air was still and sound carried over the flat Texas earth. Going somewhere, Kid Vance asked, flicking his cigarette butt into the dry grass. Darnell tried to speak. His voice was a squeak, a pathetic sound that barely reached my ears. "We are just leaving, Mr. Vance," he stammered. "We are going to figure this out. I have a plan." "You had a plan," Vance corrected him, pushing off the car and taking a step closer. "The plan was noon. The plan was the ranch." He gestured toward Freedom Hill, toward the land that was no longer Darnell's inheritance. I watched Darnell crumble. He began to wave his hands frantically. He pointed back at me. He pointed at the gate. "He tricked me," Darnell screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria. "You saw him. He tricked us all. He sold it behind my back. It is his fault." Vance did not look at me. He did not care about me. I was not the one who owed him $2 million. "That sounds like a family problem," Vance said. "My problem is my money. You promised me equity, Darnell. You promised me a hard asset. Now I am standing here in the dust with nothing but a breach of contract." "He is rich," Darnell yelled, pointing again. "He has the money, $5 million. He has it in his pocket. Go get him. He is the one you want. My own son." Even at the end, even when he was facing the consequences of his own greed, he tried to throw me to the wolves. He tried to trade my life for his. I felt a coldness settle in my chest. It was the final death of the hope I had held on to for 32 years. Mr. Freeman took a step forward. He looked ready to intervene to protect me from the accusation. "Stay back," I said quietly. "Let it play out." Vance looked past Darnell. He looked at the gate. He looked at the security team. He looked at the legal transfer of ownership that had just happened in front of 100 witnesses. He knew he could not touch me. I was insulated by the law and by force. He turned his gaze back to Darnell. "Your daddy is out of the game, kid," Vance said. "He cashed out. He was smart. You were stupid, and stupid costs extra." "Please," Darnell begged, falling to his knees in the gravel. "Please, Mr. Vance, give me a week, just 1 week. I will find the money. I will borrow it from someone else. I will do anything." "You do not have a week," Stone rumbled, stepping forward. "You do not have a day. You have right now." Stone reached down and grabbed Darnell by the lapels of his suit. He lifted him off the ground effortlessly. Darnell's feet dangled, kicking uselessly at the air. "Get off him!" Kylie screamed. She ran forward, swinging her purse at Stone. "Let him go. You cannot do this. I will call the police." Vance laughed. It was a dry, humorless bark. "Go ahead, sweetheart," he said. "Call the cops. Tell them your husband owes $2 million in illegal gambling debts and committed wire fraud to get it. See who gets locked up first." Kylie stopped. The phone was in her hand, but she did not dial. She knew he was right. Calling the police would destroy whatever fragile future they had left. Vance opened the back door of the sedan wider. "Get in," he said to Darnell. "We are going for a ride. We need to have a serious conversation about payment structures." "I am not going with you," Darnell shrieked, struggling against Stone's grip. "Help! Somebody help me!" He looked at me. His eyes locked with mine across the distance. They were wide, terrified pleading. "Dad," he screamed. "Dad, do not let them take me." I stood there. I felt the sun on my face. I felt the deed transfer receipt in my pocket. I could have stopped it. I had $3 million in a trust. I could have walked out there, written a check, and bought his freedom. I could have saved him one last time. But saving him would not help him. Saving him would only teach him that there are no consequences. Saving him would keep him a child forever. I looked at my son, and I did not move. I did not speak. I simply watched. This was the hardest thing I had ever done, harder than burying Etta, harder than walking away from the land. I was letting the world break my son so that maybe, just maybe, he could put himself back together someday. Stone shoved Darnell into the back seat. Darnell tried to scramble out the other side, but the door was locked. He pounded on the glass, his mouth open in a silent scream. Vance looked at me one last time. He touched the brim of his hat in a mocking salute. Then he got in the passenger seat. Stone got behind the wheel. Kylie was left standing in the road. She was screaming. She was banging on the trunk of the car as it started to move. "Darnell," she wailed, "do not leave me. What am I supposed to do?" The car did not stop. It accelerated, kicking up a fresh cloud of dust that coated Kylie in gray silt. She ran after it for a few yards, her broken heels twisting in the gravel. But she could not keep up. She stopped panting, her chest heaving, her mascara running down her face in black streaks. She stood alone in the middle of the empty road. The black car disappeared around the bend, taking my son to a hell of his own making. I watched until the dust settled. I felt Mr. Freeman's hand on my shoulder. "Are you all right, Mr. Douglas?" he asked, his voice low. "No," I said honestly. "I am not all right. No father is all right watching that." "Do you want us to call the sheriff?" he asked. "We can give them the license plate." I shook my head. "Not yet," I said. "Darnell needs to be scared. He needs to feel the cold steel of reality against his skin. If we save him now, he learns nothing." "But they might hurt him," Freeman said. "They won't kill him," I said. "Dead men do not pay debts. They will scare him. They might rough him up. They will make him understand that his life as a playboy is over." I turned away from the gate. I turned away from the sight of Kylie standing abandoned in the road, realizing that she was homeless, husbandless, and penniless. I walked back toward the house. The caterers were gone. The guests were gone. The tents were empty, flapping in the wind like ghosts. Freedom Hill was quiet again. It was a heavy silence, a sad silence. But it was clean. The lies were gone. The deception was over. I walked to the association truck where Ms. Patel was waiting. "Is it done?" she asked, looking at my face. "It is done," I said. She did not ask for details. She saw the grief in my eyes, and she respected it. "Let us go to the airport," I said. "I want to leave Texas." I climbed into the truck. I did not look back at the gate. I did not look back at the woman crying in the dust. I looked forward. I had a plane ticket in my pocket. I had a new life waiting. But a part of me, the part that was a father, would always be standing at that gate watching the black car drive away, wondering if I had done the right thing. I closed my eyes and prayed. "Lord, break him," I prayed. "Break him down to the foundation so he can build something real." The truck engine roared to life. We began to move, and I left my son to the mercy of the wolves he had invited to dinner. 1 week later, the air smells different. It does not smell of cattle and red dust and betrayal. It smells of rain and roasted chestnuts and freedom. I am sitting at a small round table on a sidewalk in Paris. Etta always talked about the lights of the Eiffel Tower, but I think she would have liked the coffee better. It is strong and black just the way we liked it. I have a new tablet. It is sleek and thin, not like the heavy ledger books I used to keep. I tap the glass screen. I am 4,000 miles away from Texas, but the news travels fast, especially when it is bad news. I type the name into the search bar. The name that used to be my pride but is now just a headline, Darnell Douglas. The article loads instantly. The picture is grainy, but I recognize him. He is wearing an orange jumpsuit. He is not looking at the camera. He is looking at the floor. He looks older than 32. He looks broken. The headline reads, "Local rancher arrested in massive crypto fraud scheme." I read the details. They are ugly. Darnell was picked up by the FBI 3 days ago. Vance and Stone, the loan sharks, did not kill him. They did something much crueler. They turned state's evidence. They handed over every text message, every email, every forged document Darnell sent them. They threw him to the wolves to save themselves. My son is facing charges for wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The article says he tried to leverage a property he did not own. It says he owes millions. It says he is looking at 20 years in federal prison. There is no bail. He is a flight risk with no assets and no home. He is sitting in a cell right now wondering how it all went wrong. I scroll down. I type in another name, Kylie Douglas. Her story is on the society page, but not the section she likes. It is in the scandals column. The headline says, "Socialite files for bankruptcy amidst medical forgery investigation." The recording I made of Dr. Finch, the one where they planned to drug me, found its way to the state medical board and the district attorney. Finch lost his license yesterday. and he is singing like a bird. He told them everything about Kylie's plan. He told them about the fake diagnosis. He told them about the sedatives. Kylie is being sued by the state. She is being sued by Finch. She has declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Her designer clothes are being seized. Her car is gone. Her friends, those women in the big hats, have blocked her number. She is alone. She is facing 5 years for forgery and attempted assault. She wanted to be the queen of Freedom Hill. Now she will be the queen of Cell Block C. I put the tablet down on the table. The screen goes black. I thought I would feel happy. I thought I would feel a thrill of victory seeing my enemies destroyed. But I do not feel joy. A father does not feel joy when his son falls. I feel silence. It is the deep, quiet silence of a body that has finally been cured of a sickness. Darnell and Kylie were not family anymore. They were a cancer. They were a tumor that had attached itself to my life, feeding on my blood, growing fat on my hard work. They were killing me slowly, day by day. And to survive, I had to cut them out. It was a painful surgery. It left a scar on my heart that will never fully heal. I will always miss the boy Darnell used to be. But the tumor is gone. The poison is out of my system. I take a sip of my coffee. It is warm and rich. A waiter approaches. He is young, with a white apron. "More coffee, monsieur," he asks. I smile. It is a genuine smile. "Yes, please," I say. I have nowhere to be. I have no one to fight. I am just a man enjoying his morning. The war is over. The ranch is safe. The legacy is preserved. And I am the last one standing. I pick up my tablet again. The coffee is cold, but my heart is warm. I open the video call app. I dial Mr. Freeman back at Freedom Hill. The connection rings 3 times. Then the screen fills with the bright Texas sun. Mr. Freeman is smiling. He is wearing a straw hat and he looks tired but happy behind him. I see movement. I see life. The camera pans around. I see a group of teenagers. They are young black men and women. They are wearing gloves. They are holding shovels. They are laughing. They are digging in the soil where Kylie wanted to put a tennis court. "Look at this, Hiram," Mr. Freeman says. "We got the first crop of winter wheat in the ground, and these kids, they are learning about soil, pH. They are learning about irrigation. They are learning that food does not come from a grocery store." I watch them. One boy wipes sweat from his forehead. He looks a little like I did at that age. Hungry, determined, he respects the dirt. I can see it in the way he handles the tools. My throat gets tight. I thought selling the ranch meant losing my legacy. I thought it meant the Douglas name would die out. But I was wrong. Legacy is not about a name on a deed. It is not about DNA. Legacy is about values. It is about passing the fire to the next generation. Darnell could not carry that fire. He burned himself with it. But these kids, they will carry it. They will keep Freedom Hill alive, long after I am gone. "It looks beautiful, Marcus," I say. "It looks like home." "It is home," he says. "Whenever you want to visit, the door is open." I smile. "Maybe one day," I say, "but not yet. I have a lot of world to see first." We say goodbye. The screen goes black. I sit back in my chair. The Paris evening is settling in. The streetlights are flickering on. I signal the waiter. "A glass of your best red wine, please," I say. He brings it. The wine is dark and rich. I stand up. I walk to the edge of the sidewalk. I look up at the sky. It is different stars here, but it is the same moon. I raise the glass. "Etta," I whisper. "I kept my promise." The land belongs to people who know its worth. The dirt is safe. And me, I am not just a caretaker anymore. I am not just a father. I am free. I drink the wine. It tastes like victory. They called me a senile old fool. They thought my silence was weakness. They thought my patience was submission. They forgot the most important rule of nature. Never turn your back on a quiet man. Do not underestimate the silence of a father who has been pushed too far. You might think he is giving up. You might think he is broken, but look closely. That silence is not surrender. That is the sound of him loading the last bullet into the chamber. And when he finally pulls the trigger, he does not miss. Did you like my story? Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. And remember to subscribe for more stories of justice served cold. They mistook my silence for weakness and my patience for senility. That was their fatal error. I learned that you do not need to shout to be heard. You just need to act with precision when the time is right. True. Power is not about hoarding wealth. It is about having the courage to cut out the rot even when it shares your blood. My legacy is not the money I kept, but the lesson I taught. Greed is a fire that eventually consumes the arsonist, but integrity is fireproof. Never let anyone write your ending for you, especially not those who profit from your demise. If you enjoyed seeing justice served cold, hit that like button and subscribe and tell me in the comments, would you have saved your son or let him face the music?